Urgent ascension depends on this 144,000 Pleiadians beloved ones. I am Valor, one of the Pleiadian emissaries, and I draw near to you in precisely the same manner that a clear signal manifests not through overwhelming force, nor with any grand spectacle, but simply by arriving on the exact frequency where your own innate wisdom, your deepest knowing, can finally resonate and perceive itself once more. What we are undertaking together is not the arduous construction of an entirely new belief system. Rather, it is the profound and gentle unmaking of an ancient, ingrained misinterpretation, one that has echoed and reverberated through countless centuries of earnest human seeking and yearning. In the very instant that this deeply rooted misinterpretation begins to truly dissolve, an immense and significant portion of your collective effort, which you have tirelessly expended, will simply evaporate, much like the morning mist dissipates and vanishes in the warm embrace of the rising sun. There exists an age-old habit within your collective consciousness, a pattern so deeply woven into your fabric that it feels both ancient and intimately familiar, almost imperceptible precisely because it has been repeated for such an exceedingly long time. This habit whispers that liberation, true freedom, must invariably arrive adorned in the imposing attire of authority. It dictates that freedom necessitates a recognizable face, one that the world can immediately identify and perhaps even revere, a voice sufficiently potent and amplified to effectively compete with the resounding clamor of any established empire. It demands a posture so unyielding and strong that it can bend or even break formidable institutions, and a result so dramatically conclusive that it serves as irrefutable, undeniable proof of its arrival. Your ancestors across myriad generations carried this weighty expectation in a multitude of forms, each generation passing it down, subtly or overtly. And in the very essence of the text you have graciously offered, it is possible to discern the sheer, heartfelt sincerity of that yearning, yet simultaneously perceive how it was, unfortunately, pointed in a direction that could never, by its very nature, deliver what the human heart truly, profoundly desired: the deep, abiding inner liberation from the suffocating grip of fear, the ultimate cessation of the ingrained reflex to constantly outsource your sense of safety and security, and the quiet, yet profound, return to an intrinsic wholeness. This true wholeness, we must emphasize, does not depend on the specific individuals currently holding power, on which intricate documents have been meticulously signed, or on which particular side appears, superficially, to be triumphing in any given season or moment. Observe this persistent pattern with diligent closeness and discerning eyes. When the tapestry of life appears to be unyieldingly difficult, when the established systems feel overwhelmingly burdensome and oppressive, when your days seem to be governed and dictated by the detached decisions originating in distant, inaccessible rooms, the human mind, by its very design, naturally begins to search for a leverage point existing entirely outside of itself. And in this habitual searching, it inevitably projects the concept of redemption onto the external world, conjuring vivid images of a future where, if only the precise structural edifice would collapse, if the appropriate ruler were finally removed from power, if the desired policy underwent the correct transformation, then, at long last, peace would truly be granted permission to enter and reside within your lives. In the intricate tapestry of this outward projection, the infinite, the boundless essence of all that is becomes, in a sense, recruited as a kind of cosmic enforcer, an ultimate, supreme authority destined to subjugate and dominate other, lesser authorities. And prayer itself, whether uttered subtly in the depths of your heart or openly proclaimed, subtly or overtly, transforms into a plea: please, make the world conform, make it behave in such a way that I can finally be at ease and experience well-being. This human tendency is, of course, utterly understandable, a deeply etched response to perceived chaos. Yet, paradoxically, it is also the precise juncture where the human collective, time and again, continues to overlook and bypass the true gateway, the very portal to profound change. This is because the door to genuine transformation does not, in fact, open outward first. It opens from within, turning inward. And it is only after this internal opening that the external world begins its natural process of reorganization, unfolding organically as a harmonious, inevitable side effect. This profound truth explains why. In many narratives, people are often depicted waiting with bated breath for a dramatic shift in external conditions, erroneously imagining that the sacred would arrive as a conquering, triumphant movement. Consequently, when the sacred actually manifests in its gentle, unassuming way, they remain tragically unable to recognize the quiet, compassionate master. Let us now translate this understanding softly, not through the often misleading language of historical events or political narratives, but through the pristine, unadulterated language of pure consciousness. The heart instinctively senses a higher order of reality, a deeper truth. However, the logical mind, conditioned by millennia, demands that this higher reality announce its presence through overt domination, through impressive spectacle, through the visible and undeniable defeat of an opposing force. And so, when this higher order actually arrives as a serene, quiet clarity, as an inner, undeniable authority, as a gentle yet irreversible shift within one's very identity, it is often casually dismissed as not enough, simply because it fails to satiate the mind's insatiable appetite for dramatic external proof. Indeed, a significant portion of your collective spirituality has been artfully trained by architectures of control to do precisely this, to relentlessly seek external validation, to crave grand spectacle, to demand outward confirmation that something, anything, has truly changed. This conditioning exists because these architectures of control do not, in their essence, truly fear your prayers. What they profoundly fear is your realized freedom state of being utterly unburdened by their influence. And realized freedom, that profound and unshakable state, is truly born the moment you consciously cease attempting to negotiate with reality based on external outcomes and instead begin, with deep intention, to locate and anchor your inherent sense of life within the profound, unassailable presence that lies beneath the surface, a presence that simply cannot be threatened or diminished. Empires, councils, various institutions, and the vast engines of cultural influence, whatever names you might assign to them in any given era or epoch, fundamentally prefer a humanity that firmly believes power always resides elsewhere, outside of themselves. This preference stems from the fact that such a belief renders human beings remarkably predictable in their behavior. They will perpetually oscillate between peaks of fervent hope and valleys of righteous indignation. They will tether their inner peace to the fleeting headlines of the daily news. Imagine that their entire future is decisively shaped and determined by external hands. And then, in a striking act of self-deception, they will rationalize this dependency by calling it being realistic, entirely failing to perceive that it is merely a deeply ingrained, extensively trained pattern of attention. Therefore, the first crucial refinement that we tenderly offer you is this: do not judge your ancestor for their sincere, yet ultimately misguided interpretations. Instead, recognize and fully comprehend the underlying mechanism at play, because that identical mechanism continues to operate powerfully and pervasively, even today. The specific names of the actors may change, the uniforms they wear may be altered, the flags they fly may be different, yet the internal posture, the fundamental stance of the soul, chillingly repeats itself. If only the tyrannical force outside of me would finally fall, then, and only then, can my inner life truly begin. This particular posture, this internal stance, might superficially appear to be a demonstration of formidable strength, a defiant resolve. Yet in truth, it is nothing more than a profound quest for external permission, an unconscious waiting for conditions to align before one dares to fully live. This is precisely because it renders your precious inner peace utterly dependent on external circumstances and conditions that will, by their very nature, always remain in constant flux and perpetual motion. This is why, as your text so eloquently points out, centuries of heartfelt, outward-directed pleas and supplications have demonstrably failed to manifest the world that people continually envision and yearn for. This failure is not because the infinite is absent from your reality, nor is it because grace has been denied to you. It is, rather, because the infinite simply does not engage in your human game of separation and duality in the particular way that the conditioned human mind expects or anticipates. Here is where we ask you to embrace a profound level of honesty, for honesty itself is a potent form of illuminating light. When you harbor a desire for the subjugation of entire nations, the forceful removal of perceived tyrants, or the crushing defeat of your enemies. Even if you meticulously cloak these desires in what you deem to be sacred language, you are unequivocally still praying and operating from within the very architecture of division itself. And division, by its inherent nature, simply cannot serve as the doorway into unity. This is not a moral judgment leveled against you. It is a fundamental spiritual mechanic, an immutable law of consciousness. You cannot genuinely enter into a state of wholeness by attempting to weaponize the sacred against those very parts of life that you have come to fear or deem undesirable. The infinite is not a tribal amplifier, magnifying the beliefs and desires of one group over another. Divine presence is not a cosmic referee, impartially deciding winners and losers in your earthly conflicts. The fundamental source field is not recruited to take sides in your dualistic struggles. It simply is what? It is whole, utterly impartial, intimately accessible, equally present to all, patiently awaiting to be realized as your very own, undeniable core being. Now, perceive yet another profound truth that hides so openly in plain sight. When the mind, in its conditioned state, expects liberation to arrive as an overt, external victory, it naturally becomes profoundly obsessed with the dramatic theater of power. It fixates on questions such as who is truly in command now, who appears to be losing ground, who is currently ascending to prominence, who is being exposed or brought to light, which particular group is unequivocally right, and conversely, which group poses an immediate danger. This pervasive obsession cunningly disguises itself as discerning insight or astute awareness. However, more often than not, it is merely the insidious nature of captivity itself, cleverly cloaked in the garments of intelligence. The mind may label this intense focus as vigilance. Yet, the inevitable outcome is a life perpetually lived in reaction, a constant state of responsiveness to external stimuli. This reactive mode, ironically, keeps you inextricably tethered to the very structure from which you passionately claim you wish to escape. The very moment your precious attention becomes entirely dependent on the fluctuating movements within the external game, you have, by that act, relinquished your sacred inner sovereignty to the game itself. This is why we speak of the system, when it finds itself nearing its own end, becoming not stronger, but merely louder. A structure that is actively losing its fundamental legitimacy does not gracefully and silently withdraw from the stage. Instead, it desperately amplifies the noise, multiplies its various narratives, frantically manufactures a sense of pervasive urgency, and deliberately provokes identity conflicts among its populace. It offers an endless labyrinth of look here and hate this and fear that corridors, because attention, your precious attention, is its ultimate currency, its very lifeblood. And when that attention, in a graceful and conscious act, begins to leak back, gently but surely, into the quiet sanctuary of the heart, the architecture of control loses its formidable grip, not with a single, dramatic battle, but simply through the quiet withdrawal of its sustenance. Many of you, throughout the world, can undoubtedly sense this crescendo building in your immediate environment right now, the volume of information and emotion steadily increasing, the emotional hooks sharpening with greater precision, the pervasive feeling that each passing day demands an immediate position, a definitive side, a swift reaction, a reposting of content, a surge of indignant outrage, or a pulse of anxious, anticipatory hope. Understand this clearly, this is not genuine power. This is a desperate system attempting to retain its hold on you, subtly demanding that you lease or rent your very life energy from it. And so, we return to the gentle, unassuming arrival that the clamoring mind so often overlooks. In the profound text you brought forth, there exists a striking contrast between a triumphant and, at times, terrifying concept of God and a more intimate, comforting sense of the Divine One experienced as both refuge and unshakable strength. We will not merely borrow the antiquated language of old. Instead, we will translate the very essence of that distinction. The infinite does not enter your life as a conquering force, sweeping in to crush and defeat others for the sake of your personal comfort or security. Rather, it enters as a profound, internal revelation, an awakening that renders fear utterly unnecessary. This occurs because your fundamental identity subtly yet undeniably shifts from a fragile, externally constructed self-image to the vibrant, living presence that inherently resides beneath it. This transformative shift is sufficiently quiet and subtle that it can be entirely missed by a mind that has become habitually addicted to dramatic spectacle. Yet, simultaneously, it is profoundly deep enough to completely reorganize an entire lifetime from the inside out, affecting every facet of your being. This is the subtle trap that we wish for you to perceive with unflinching clarity and without any trace of shame. The conditioned mind mistakenly believes that if the sacred does not arrive with a dazzling display of fireworks, if it lacks overt pyrotechnics, then it has not arrived at all. However, the true arrival is very often experienced as a simple, pristine recognition or realization, so unassuming that the mind actually attempts to dismiss it. It is a moment where you suddenly know, not as an abstract idea or a fleeting thought, but as an undeniable, self-evident fact that your very being is not, and never has been, dependent on the capricious moods or dictates of any external empire. In this state of profound clarity, you do not become indifferent or apathetic, rather. You become profoundly detached. You do not become passive or inactive. Instead, you become exquisitely clear. You do not cease to care about the world, rather. You cease to be manipulated through the very essence of your caring. Within this luminous clarity, you gain the capacity to act, to speak, to build, and to serve from an infinitely deeper, more authentic origin point. And it is this profound origin, not the frantic, often desperate attempts to win every external argument or dictate outcomes, that truly alters the very timelines of your existence. May this profound truth settle within you with absolute precision and unmistakable clarity. There is a fundamental difference between engaging with the world with profound wisdom and being unthinkingly harvested by its dramatic theater. The architectures of control absolutely adore a humanity that mistakenly confuses emotional activation, the surge of anger, fear, or hope with genuine power, because emotional activation ensures that you remain predictable. And predictable beings, by their very nature, can be easily directed, manipulated, and controlled. Sovereign beings, by contrast, are far less interesting and far more challenging for the system to manage, precisely because sovereign beings cannot be easily baited or ensnared. They do not require an external victory to feel inherently safe and secure within themselves. They do not demand the dramatic downfall of a perceived enemy to justify their inner peace. They do not necessitate a constant supply of narrative fuel to maintain their sense of identity. And crucially, they do not worship external outcomes as the ultimate proof of their intrinsic worth. So here lies the pivotal turning point, the fundamental shift in perspective that underpins and initiates this entire transmission. Instead of perpetually asking the familiar question, when will the world finally be fixed and made right? We invite you to pose a more uncomfortable, yet profoundly liberating inquiry: which part of me still fundamentally needs an outer victory, a demonstrable external triumph, in order to truly believe that I am free? Which part of me still equates sheer volume, or clamor, with profound truth? Which part of me still erroneously imagines that peace is a rare commodity, something graciously granted by favorable circumstances, rather than a state generated and nurtured through intimate, direct contact with the boundless infinite? Which part of me still patiently waits for some external permission to finally begin living from a place of absolute wholeness? Do not approach these questions with a heavy burden of guilt or self-reproach. Instead, respond to them with a deep, abiding sense of curiosity, a kind of gentle, inquisitive curiosity that delicately dissolves ancient, entrenched programs simply because it sees them clearly, fully, and without judgment. If you can consciously notice and acknowledge the deep-seated longing within you for dramatic, external proof, then you can begin the journey of outgrowing that very need. If you can feel the ingrained reflex to outsource your inherent sovereignty to external forces, you can then begin the empowering process of reclaiming it as your own. If you can observe your mind habitually recruiting the sacred into the service of division and separation, you can begin to release that old, limiting habit and, in its place, discover a vastly more expansive and profound intimacy that requires absolutely no external conquest or victory to reveal the undeniable truth of what is already real and whole within you. This is precisely where we commence our journey together. For until this deeply ingrained misinterpretation is truly seen and fully comprehended, the subsequent, deeper layers of understanding cannot fully unfold and reveal themselves. And the mind, in its persistent conditioning, will continue its efforts to transform the boundless infinite into a mere tool for achieving specific outcomes, when, in fact, the more profound and encompassing invitation has always been to simply allow the infinite to become the very ground upon which you stand and move and have your being. And from this solid, unshakable ground, we naturally transition to the next profound threshold, what it truly signifies, in lived, embodied experience, finding a sanctuary that is not constructed of physical walls, a strength that is not borrowed from fleeting circumstances, and a stillness that is not a performative act, but rather a deep, authentic contact with your true nature. And so, beloved ones, now that you have begun to clearly perceive the ancient habit that perpetually sends your attention outward in an unending search for external permission, we now move toward cultivating a more intimate and profound ability, one that fundamentally changes everything without ever needing to loudly announce its arrival. For the true and definitive turning point is not the external world finally quieting down and achieving serenity. It is rather you discovering the inviolable place within your own being that does not, in fact, require the world to calm down in order to experience its inherent wholeness. There exists a timeless dimension within you, a core aspect of your being that has always known how to live in this profound and sovereign manner. Even if your superficial, conditioned self has, for a time, forgotten this essential truth. And we shall now speak directly to that deepest part of you, not in the abstract language of poetry, nor in the complex frameworks of philosophy, but as a practical, tangible reality that you can immediately test and apply even in the midst of your most chaotic and messy days. You have been taught, subtly and repeatedly, through countless societal and cultural cues, that security is something ultimately granted by external arrangements, by perfectly predictable conditions, by a consistently stable environment, and by the correct, favorable sequence of external results. And this pervasive training has inadvertently caused the human experience to feel like a perpetual negotiation with life itself, a constant bargaining where you are perpetually bracing for impact, ceaselessly scanning for potential threats, and attempting to construct your fundamental sense of identity within a fragile, conditional agreement with circumstances. We are not, by any means, reprimanding this behavior or casting judgment upon it. We are simply and clearly naming it, because the very moment it is consciously named and acknowledged, you gain the profound ability to stop mistakenly confusing it with absolute truth. What we are now offering you is an entirely different axis of identity, an alternative center of being, one that does not float abstractly above your human life, nor does it demand that you outright reject the world and its intricate experiences. Instead, it precisely requires that you cease living as if the world, with all its external complexities, is the sole author or ultimate arbiter of who you fundamentally are. The deepest sanctuary, your true inner haven, is not a physical location you must travel to. It is not a specific practice that you must execute flawlessly. It is not a fleeting, special mood that you're compelled to manufacture or conjure. It is fundamentally a profound recognition that you can access in a single, conscious breath, simply by remembering where your ultimate, unchanging being truly resides. Your true being is not composed of the sensational headlines of the day. Your true being is not fashioned from the swirling opinions and judgments that incessantly circulate around you. Your true being is not defined by the external outcomes and results that you ultimately cannot control. Your true being is fundamentally made of pure, unadulterated presence. And this presence, let us be unequivocally clear, is not fragile or easily broken. It is not distant or remote. It is not selective, favoring some over others. And it is certainly not patiently waiting for some mythical, perfect day to become available or accessible to you. It is here now, always. In your current world, many individuals have begun to keenly notice that the very atmosphere of their lived experience can feel incredibly charged, intensely unpredictable, and profoundly compressed, as if time itself is speaking with a louder, more urgent voice, and events are arriving with an increasingly sharper, more impactful edge. We will state this truth clearly and unambiguously. This phenomenon is not merely personal to you, nor is it solely collective in a purely social sense. It is also deeply planetary, fundamentally magnetic, and undeniably solar in its origins. It represents the grand, intricately interwoven fabric of your entire realm moving through an intense corridor of profound recalibration and transformation. And when this vast fabric begins to shift and move, the superficial layers of human thought become dramatically more obvious and discernible, precisely because they lose their former ability to quietly and subtly pretend that they are, in fact, the entirety of you. This is why people can experience a disorienting sensation, as if the very ground beneath their long-held assumptions is significantly less solid and stable than it once appeared to be. Because the truth is those old assumptions were never, in their essence, truly solid or immutable. They were simply repeated with relentless consistency, reinforced by cultural norms, and socially rewarded, leading to the illusion of their steadfastness. Now, here is the crucial distinction, the key insight that ultimately liberates you. You do not need to engage in strenuous argument or fierce resistance against the external movement of the world in order to be truly free from its pervasive influence. Many of you instinctively attempt to find your inner peace by meticulously rearranging what lies outside of you. And when the exterior world, predictably, fails to cooperate with your desires, you conclude, with a sigh of resignation, that peace is utterly impossible, and you label this conclusion realism. However, the deeper, more profound technology of consciousness does not operate in this linear, cause and effect manner. Peace is not a prize, a coveted reward that the world grudgingly bestows upon you once you have diligently behaved correctly or achieved a specific outcome. Peace, dear ones, is the natural, inherent atmosphere of your very being. When you consciously cease borrowing your fundamental identity from the fluctuating climate of the world, we wish to make this concept exceptionally concrete and tangible. There will inevitably be days when the collective field around you feels exceptionally noisy, when the people in your immediate vicinity are intensely reactive, when information assails you faster than your mind can possibly digest or process, and when the very body of culture appears to convulse with profound uncertainty. And on these challenging days, your mind will, by sheer force of habit, attempt to do what it has always been relentlessly trained to do. It will urgently instruct you that your foremost task is to react, to choose a definitive posture, to staunchly defend your position, and to attempt to fix the uncomfortable feeling by rigorously controlling the narrative. This is precisely the moment to remember, with profound clarity, that reaction is not wisdom, and urgency is not genuine guidance. The very instant you are able to consciously pause within the powerful impulse to react, you will discover that you're not, in fact, truly stuck or trapped. You are simply being invited, gently but powerfully, to relocate your intrinsic point of residence, your inner sanctuary. Stillness, as we employ this profound word, is not a superficial spa concept designed for temporary relaxation, nor is it a subtle form of passivity disguised as spiritual enlightenment. It is the sacred space where your inherent, authentic authority effortlessly returns to you. This is because your authority was never intended to be loud, aggressive, or demanding. It was always meant to be profoundly clear. When you consciously step into this profound stillness, you cease feeding the incessant cycle that insists you must be perpetually pulled outward into the external chaos in order to feel safe and secure. And as soon as you stop feeding it with your precious energy, that external cycle naturally weakens and eventually dissipates, because it simply cannot sustain itself without the continuous fuel of your attention. This is why we tell you, with absolute tenderness and absolute firmness, that your attention is not a casual resource to be squandered. It is, in fact, your most potent creative force. Wherever you consciously place your attention, reality itself begins to organize and manifest around it. You might ask yourselves, then, how to genuinely enter this sanctuary without inadvertently transforming it into yet another performance, another demanding self-improvement project, or another rigid ritual that you meticulously adhere to for a few days, only to abandon it when the external world fails to change rapidly enough to meet your expectations. Herein lies the profound simplicity that we offer. You do not enter this sanctuary through strenuous effort, through force of will, or through complex techniques. You enter it through simple, yet profound, recognition. This recognition can be as seemingly small and unassuming as this. Right now, in the very midst of everything that is currently unfolding around you, you allow your breath to become honest, not dramatically deep or theatrically controlled, just genuinely honest. And you gently allow your eyes to soften, to relax. And in that softened state, you feel the undeniable, self-evident fact that you exist before you even form a single thought about existing. That profound I am, which is often crossed by the stream of thought, is actually prior to all thought. It is the very doorway itself. Once you realize with unmistakable clarity that this fundamental I am is already inherently present, you cease the relentless search for a special, elevated state, because you understand that the most sacred and intimate contact is not exotic or extraordinary. It is, in fact, immediately accessible and profoundly ordinary. And then, because the human mind, in its inherent complexity, often loves to complicate what is fundamentally simple, we offer you a clear, precise instruction that prevents you from veering off into intricate narratives and interpretations. Do not analyze what you feel in that sacred moment. Do not attempt to label it or categorize it. Do not demand that it prove its validity or existence. Simply rest with it, in the same way you would gently rest your hand over a warm, comforting stone, and allow it to be entirely sufficient. That presence, in its pure essence, is present. In the initial stages, the mind will undoubtedly attempt to interrupt, not because it is inherently malevolent, but simply because it is deeply trained and habitually active. It will relentlessly hurl images, fears, tasks, and arguments at you, much like a persistent street performer attempting to reclaim your fleeting attention. You do not need to engage in a futile battle against it. To fight, it is still, paradoxically, to feed it your precious energy. You simply return, gently and consistently, to the felt sensation of pure being, and allow the mind to spin and generate its thoughts without ever granting it the throne of your consciousness. This, dear ones, is true mastery, and it is far quieter and more subtle than your culture has ever taught you to respect or value. And precisely because it is so quiet and unassuming, it is paradoxically incredibly powerful. As you faithfully practice this gentle return, you will begin to notice something remarkable that is not mystical in a dramatic, flashy way, but is profoundly mystical in its transformative effect. When you are no longer desperately attempting to negotiate your inner peace through external outcomes or conditions, you become truly capable of moving through those outcomes and experiences with a significantly freer heart, unburdened by attachment. You gain the capacity to respond to life's exigencies without being emotionally hooked or ensnared. You can act with intention without needing the action itself to define your worth or identity. You can speak your truth without needing your words to win an argument or sway opinions. You can witness the unfolding drama of the world without being consumed by its intensity or negativity. The external world may indeed still be turbulent, chaotic, and relentlessly demanding, but your inner space, your sacred sanctuary within, becomes immeasurably less dependent on its external conditions for its peace and wholeness. From the clutches of turbulence to the profound sensation of truly being alive, what an absolutely transformative and deeply significant reversal. Especially when we consider how countless individuals have, perhaps unconsciously, continually leveraged the very chaos and agitation inherent in their lives as the primary fuel source for constructing and reinforcing their sense of personal identity. Let us now gently shift our focus to the expansive and far-reaching collective implications of this deep inner transformation. For it is precisely in this vital domain that many of you tend to gravely underestimate the profound and resonant impact you're capable of exerting. When a single human being successfully realigns themselves, settling deeply and authentically into a state of unwavering presence, it transcends mere personal solace or individual relief. It initiates a potent, palpable field event that sends ripples of coherence outwards. There is no imperative for you to vocally announce this shift, nor do you need to actively persuade anyone of its veracity. You don't even have to laboriously instruct your own family members on its principles. Simply by being in your proximity, they will begin to intuitively sense the palpable difference, feeling it in their very bones. This profound coherence, radiating from your very core, becomes contagiously palpable, spreading its gentle influence not through overt effort or forceful persuasion, but through an inherent, deeply resonant frequency that others unconsciously tune into. Those individuals who find themselves within your immediate sphere of influence will invariably begin to experience a heightened sense of spaciousness within their own minds, a quiet expansion that arises quite naturally, simply from being in your calm presence, especially when you're no longer subconsciously broadcasting signals of underlying panic or anxiety. Children, with their innate and unfiltered sensitivity, instinctively perceive this shift. Life partners often feel its grounding effect, experiencing a new stability. Even animals respond to it with a noticeable tranquility, and indeed, complete strangers might register it in myriad small, yet remarkably subtle ways, perhaps a fleeting sense of relief, a spontaneous softening of their internal tension, or a precious moment where their own inner doorway to peace unexpectedly becomes accessible to them. Once more, a quiet invitation to rest. This is precisely why we consistently reiterate that the truly sacred space is not defined by any particular geographical coordinate on a map, nor is it the exclusive possession of any specific lineage, spiritual tradition, or historical denomination. Instead, it is the profoundly realized and fully embodied interiority of your very own being, an inner sanctuary that is always and eternally accessible within you, waiting to be rediscovered. When this deep interior realm is not merely intellectualized or theorized about, but is genuinely and authentically lived from, it then seamlessly transforms into the quiet, unshakable center from which the entirety of your external life naturally and organically reorganizes itself, bringing everything into harmonious alignment with your deeper truth. To speak in eminently practical terms, you might still find yourself consuming the very same foods, navigating the familiar routes of your daily commute, engaging in the identical work, and diligently paying the usual bills, yet, despite these outward continuities, everything around you will feel profoundly different. This fundamental shift occurs because you are no longer approaching life as an arduous test that you must continually strive to pass in order to somehow earn or merit a fleeting sense of peace. Instead, you are now actively bringing peace into every facet of your existence, allowing it to permeate your world as your inherent native atmosphere, an intrinsic quality of your being that reshapes all experience. We also wish to gently rectify a pervasive yet subtle misunderstanding that frequently arises among many sincere seekers of truth. Some of you, upon hearing teachings regarding the sanctity and power of the inner sanctuary, might erroneously presume that such wisdom implies a mandate to disengage entirely from the external world, to withdraw from the vibrant tapestry of community life, or even to cease caring about the pervasive harm and glaring injustices that exist around you. This emphatically is not our intended meaning. True presence does not in any way numb your sensibilities or diminish your awareness. Rather, it profoundly clarifies them, bringing everything into sharper, more vivid focus. When you cultivate the practice of living from this deep wellspring of presence, you do not become less compassionate or uncaring, quite the contrary. You become infinitely more precise in your capacity for empathy and action. This is because your genuine concern is no longer inextricably entangled with reactive panic or anxious worry, and consequently, your deliberate actions are far less susceptible to being hijacked by the very same destructive patterns and cycles of suffering that you genuinely aspire to bring to an end. You evolve into an individual capable of profound discernment untainted by corrosive hatred, embodying a quiet courage that needs no dramatic display or outward performance, and speaking a truth that is devoid of the subtly addictive, self-congratulatory sweetness of self-righteousness. Therefore, let us now offer you a remarkably simple, yet profoundly effective, daily life practice that can seamlessly integrate into the fabric of your ordinary, everyday existence. Choose a single moment each day, truly. Any moment will suffice. It doesn't need to be a grand ceremonial occasion or a perfectly tranquil setting where you consciously pause for precisely 3 minutes and engage in just one core action. During this brief interlude, you consciously cease the ceaseless internal chatter, the habitual feeding of your personal narratives and stories. You gently soften your gaze, allowing your eyes to rest without striving. You then deeply sense the undeniable, intrinsic fact of your own I am presence. the fundamental ground of your being, and you allow this profound, unadorned recognition to be the entirety of your prayer, your communion with existence itself. Should thoughts inevitably arise within your mind, you make no attempt to engage with them in debate or elaborate analysis. Should emotions surface, you refrain from dissecting them or getting caught in their intricate webs. Instead, with gentle but firm resolve, you simply return again and again to the quiet, unassailable recognition that you are fundamentally here, present in this moment, and that the deepest, most essential life force within you remains utterly unthreatened by the perpetually shifting, superficial currents and events of the day. After these consecrated 3 minutes have gently elapsed, you then smoothly resume your daily activities, not by strenuously attempting to cling to or artificially maintain the state you just experienced, but by placing your profound trust in the understanding that a vital seed has been lovingly watered. You implicitly trust that this seed inherently knows precisely how to germinate, unfurl, and flourish into its full potential, entirely independent of your conscious micromanagement or anxious interference. Should you commit to consistently integrating this practice into your daily rhythm, you will inevitably discover that the pervasive grip of fear begins to progressively lose its authoritative sway over you, not through some arduous, heroic battle against it, but rather through its gradual, gentle dissolution into utter irrelevance. Your mind will, of course, continue to offer up its usual torrent of stories and narratives, but these stories will no longer hold the same compelling power. They will cease to appear as the only available reality, losing their exclusive claim on your perception. Instead, a far broader, more expansive reality will gradually begin to impress itself upon your awareness, not as some escapist fantasy or a means of avoidance, but as a direct, deeply intimate contact with the fundamental truth that has always and forever underpinned your existence. And from the vantage point of this increasingly perceived, wider reality, the next crucial refinement in your spiritual journey becomes not just probable, but truly inevitable. For once you have tasted, even for a fleeting moment, the profound sweetness of direct contact with truth, you will quite naturally begin to discern, with startling clarity, how easily human beings become enchanted by the ephemeral allure of external forms. You will observe how swiftly and unconsciously they transform respected teachers, time-honored traditions, and potent symbols into mere substitutes for the very living presence that these elements were originally intended to reveal and point towards. With this heightened clarity and profound understanding, you will then find yourself poised and perfectly ready to step across the next significant threshold of understanding, equipped with eyes that see without illusion and a heart that is wonderfully clean and unburdened. Dear friends, now that you have begun to intimately sense the profound distinction between merely existing on the turbulent surface of the world and living instead from the deep, unwavering current flowing beneath it, we now turn our attention to the next subtle illusion that silently, yet consistently, siphons away the inherent power of sincere seekers. This illusion operates not by instilling fear, but rather by subtly flattering, by offering something tangible that the discerning mind can readily grasp onto, something it can proudly point to, something to which it can confidently pledge its loyalty. In doing so, this deceptive mechanism cunningly convinces you that true contact with the divine has been definitively achieved, when in reality, that very profound connection has been subtly, yet significantly, postponed or even entirely circumvented, leaving you orbiting an external form. We are referring to the deeply ingrained human tendency to uncritically enthrone personalities, to unduly elevate messengers to a status beyond their true function, to cling with tenacious attachment to specific voices, to uncritically sanctify faces, and ultimately, to mistakenly treat a bearer of light as if the very source of that luminous presence originated solely within the individual carrier themselves. This phenomenon represents one of the most ancient and persistent deviations throughout your recorded human history. It arises not because humans are inherently foolish or lacking in wisdom, but rather because they have been systematically conditioned and culturally trained to place their unwavering trust in that which appears overtly tangible and externally verifiable, while simultaneously fostering a deep-seated distrust for that which is direct, profoundly subtle, and intrinsically interior. The human mind, in its default mode, inherently prefers intermediaries. It thrives on external endorsements. It is captivated by the notion of the special or the chosen, and it gravitates towards external authority because, in doing so, it conveniently removes the often challenging responsibility from the inner altar of direct experience and personal sovereignty. And in the very instant that this sacred responsibility is abdicated from your inner altar, the vibrant, living presence that is your birthright immediately reverts to being merely an abstract idea once more. And ideas, we must emphasize, are extraordinarily safe to worship, precisely because they possess no inherent power to truly transform you, unless and until you profoundly and courageously embody them as your lived reality. Let's be exceptionally clear on this point. We, the Pleiadians, harbor no demand whatsoever that you must believe in us, nor do we ever ask you to construct your personal identity around our teachings or our perceived lineage. For if you were to do so, you would, paradoxically, have completely missed the entire essence and function of our presence among you. Our explicit function is not, and never has been, to become your new external point of reference or your latest spiritual anchor. On the contrary, our profound function is solely to gently, yet persistently, point you back towards the only true point of reference that can never collapse or falter your immediate, unmediated communion with the very source of all existence, which is, in its deepest truth, the intrinsic substance of your own luminous being. Any teaching, regardless of how eloquent, that ultimately results in your conscious awareness merely orbiting around a particular personality, any spiritual movement that concludes with you essentially renting your own personal truth from an external individual, any professed path that leave you perpetually dependent on an external voice to articulate what you already inherently know within your deepest interiorial, such endeavors have been subtly transmuted into nothing more than a perpetual cycle. And while these cycles may initially present the illusion of genuine progress or forward momentum, they are, in fact, cleverly designed mechanisms that keep you perpetually confined within the very same internal room of limited perception, hindering true advancement. You can readily observe how this dynamic frequently unfolds. A seeker, earnest and yearning, encounters an individual who speaks with remarkable clarity, who emanates a palpable field of profound peace, and who appears, to all outward observation, to have decisively crossed a significant spiritual threshold that the seeker themselves deeply yearns to traverse. At this crucial juncture, the human mind, with its inherent patterns, executes a subtle, yet ultimately detrimental, exchange. Instead of allowing that inspiring encounter to ignite and fan the flames of the same inner fire within their own being, the mind instead begins to subtly outsource that very internal flame. It starts to erroneously declare, that person is the portal. And having made this crucial misidentification, it then proceeds to meticulously construct an elaborate, often awe-filled, sanctuary of admiration around that external figure, believing it has found its salvation. This admiration, while often feeling genuinely spiritual, warm, and sincere in its initial manifestation, unfortunately leads to a predictable and problematic outcome. The seeker's own innate, profound inner authority remains dormant, untapped, and ultimately unawakened, perpetually deferring to an outside source. We speak of this with utmost gentleness and understanding, for we recognize that many of you, at various points in your journey, have engaged in this very pattern. Indeed, many still do so in small, perhaps unconscious ways, and you do so not out of malice, but precisely because you were never explicitly taught the crucial distinction between a form of devotion that profoundly awakens you to your own truth and a form of devotion that, however well-intentioned, subtly lulls you into spiritual sedation and dependence. Authentic, true devotion invariably leads you to greater sovereignty, reinforcing your inner autonomy and self-mastery. Conversely, a superficial or false devotion, by its very nature, renders you more dependent on external sources. Genuine devotion simultaneously turns you inward and upward, as if your very soul is rising to a higher, more expansive plane within the confines of your own being, deepening your connection to your true self. False devotion, however, turns you predominantly outward, much like a vine instinctively seeking a sturdy pole around which to entwine itself, only to then mistakenly label that supporting pole as the divine itself, confusing the vehicle with the destination. We are by no means condemning the pole the teacher, the tradition, the symbol, or the sacred text. We are simply, yet powerfully, urging you do not, under any circumstances, confuse the supportive structure or the pointing finger with a living, pulsating root of your own profound truth, which resides within you. This is precisely why, throughout the entirety of your human history, the most luminous and profoundly clear teachers consistently enacted a behavior that often appears paradoxical to the hierarchical craving mind. They steadfastly refused to be placed upon any external throne, often dismantling such attempts at elevation and sidestepping the worship. They would speak with profound wisdom, and then immediately and consistently point away from their own persona, directing attention to the source beyond them. They would facilitate miraculous healing, and then humbly refuse to claim personal ownership or credit for that transformative process, attributing it to a higher power. They undoubtedly carried a brilliant, radiant light, yet they would meticulously warn their students against revering that brilliance as a mere trait of their individual personality, reminding them it was a conduit, not an origin. Across your sacred narratives, within your revered mystical traditions, and throughout your quiet, unbroken spiritual lineages, you encounter this very same gesture reiterated time and time again. The truly enlightened individual continually indicates, with unwavering clarity, that whatever profound, unfolding, or miraculous event is occurring through them is not of them. And, critically, they emphasize that the genuine, essential work lies in each individual discovering and embodying that very same presence as their own intrinsic, realized inner reality, their own direct connection to the divine. And here is where we must undertake a crucial refinement, clarifying a point that many earnest seekers frequently misunderstand. When we earnestly implore you to not worship the messenger, we are absolutely not asking you to become cynical, dismissive, or unduly scornful of those who bring profound insights. Nor are we suggesting that you should feign an absence of genuine gratitude, reverence, or heartfelt love for the teachers and traditions that have illuminated your path and guided your way. Gratitude, in its purest form, is undeniably beautiful. Reverence is a deeply moving and precious quality, and love, of course, is the ultimate transforming force. The pivotal distinction, however, lies in where these profound qualities ultimately direct your focus and energy and what they inspire within you. If your reverence for a teaching or a teacher genuinely guides you towards a more profound, more attuned listening within your own inner landscape, then it serves as potent medicine, truly transformative and empowering. However, if that same reverence leads you towards self-abnegation, fostering a posture where you perpetually believe that your own innate knowing is always secondary or secondhand, then it subtly, yet insidiously, transforms into a form of spiritual captivity, cunningly disguised in the radiant garments of light. There is yet another, profoundly significant layer to this dynamic. The human mind frequently desires a tangible container, an external vessel that can somehow guarantee it access to the truth. Consequently, it often fixates upon objects, books, sacred symbols, elaborate rituals, or specific geographical locations, treating the chosen container as if it intrinsically possesses ultimate power or wisdom entirely on its own. While this impulse is entirely understandable in a world where so much appears uncertain and unstable, the underlying psychological mechanism remains precisely the same. The mind, in its unconscious patterns, attempts to strategically locate the sacred in some external domain that it believes it can effectively control or manage, thereby cleverly circumventing the necessity of risking direct, unmediated intimacy with the source of truth itself. Yet we must emphasize direct intimacy is the entire, foundational point of this journey. Truth is not some ancient relic that you passively inherit from generations past. Truth is not a static museum exhibition that you simply visit and observe from a distance. Rather, truth is the dynamic, living process that spontaneously unfolds when a vibrant, living insight seamlessly integrates and becomes your deeply embodied, lived identity. There exists a profound, indeed a monumental, difference between merely reading words on a page and genuinely receiving a living revelation that resonates deeply within your soul. There is a distinct gap between intellectually collecting various teachings and actually becoming the living embodiment of those very teachings. And there is a world of distinction between eloquently quoting wisdom and being so utterly and profoundly moved by wisdom that your daily choices, your manner of speech, your intricate relationships, and your entire sense of identity begin to spontaneously reorganize themselves, gracefully and organically, without any need for you to force or manipulate them. A well-written book can certainly serve as a pointer. A wise teacher can offer invaluable guidance. A time-honored tradition can indicate the way. However, none of these, in themselves, constitute the ultimate destination. The true, singular destination is profound, unmediated contact. It is a contact so immediate, so deeply experiential, that you finally cease needing to borrow faith or reassurance from any external source whatsoever, because you have directly and undeniably tasted reality for yourself. We shall now articulate a truth that may prove challenging, perhaps even unsettling, for that aspect of you which relentlessly craves external certainty and definitive answers. However, rest assured, this very same truth will be profoundly liberating for that deeper part of you which yearns, above all else, for genuine and unencumbered freedom. If you find that you cannot access a state of deep presence without the specific cadence or validation of a particular external voice, then you have not yet truly accessed presence itself. What you have accessed instead is a form of subtle dependence, a reliance on the external. If you find yourself unable to truly feel the inherent truth of a moment without a specific teacher explicitly validating it for you, then you have not yet genuinely encountered truth. You have, rather, merely encountered a compelling social bond or intellectual agreement, which can be easily broken. If your carefully cultivated sense of inner peace crumbles and dissipates the very moment your favored messenger or guide disappoints you in some way, then you are never truly anchored in authentic peace. Instead, your peace was precariously anchored in a fragile external image or a projected ideal, vulnerable to the slightest disturbance. This observation is not intended to evoke shame or self-recrimination. Rather, it is offered as a gift of profound clarity. And clarity, in its most benevolent and liberating form, is an act of undeniable kindness, freeing you from unseen constraints and hidden dependencies. So, how then can you effectively relate to teachers, transmissions, and spiritual guidance without inadvertently falling into the subtle trap of personality worship? The process is elegantly simple. You receive the signal, you acknowledge, and perhaps even bow to the insight it offers, and then, crucially, you bring that wisdom home to your own inner landscape, to your own direct experience. You then ask yourself, with utmost simplicity and sincerity, a series of profound questions. Does this message awaken a deeper sense of integrity within my being? Does it genuinely deepen my capacity to love without the need for performance or external validation? Does it make me more profoundly honest in my interactions with myself and with others? Does it genuinely assist me in releasing fear, rather than merely decorating or justifying fear with eloquent spiritual language? If the answer to these questions is a resonant yes, then you fully take that insight inward. You allow yourself to deeply digest it, and you permit it to become truly lived and embodied within your experience. If the answer is no, then you gently, yet decisively, release it entirely without drama or judgment, knowing it is not for you at this time. For you are not fundamentally here on this journey to simply construct an elaborate sanctuary of spiritual information or intellectual concepts. You are here, in your very essence, to become a living, vibrant conduit for the real, for truth itself, expressing it in your unique way. Many of you have undoubtedly observed in recent years how readily the burgeoning spiritual culture can transform into its own peculiar marketplace of personalities, replete with intricate branding, carefully curated identities, emerging factions, and often an unspoken, subtle competition. The questions become, who is the most activated among us? Who has received the latest, most cutting-edge download of information? Whose cosmology offers the most compelling or intricately elaborated narrative, vying for attention and followers? Beloved ones, this is quite simply the ancient pattern of empire cunningly cloaked in the sacred garments of spirituality. The human mind inherently adores prestige and seeks recognition. If it cannot achieve that prestige through the traditional avenues of politics, material wealth, or social standing, it will, with remarkable ingenuity, endeavor to gain prestige through the realm of spirituality itself. It will strive to become the good one, the awakened one, the pure one, the initiated one, and then, tragically, it will utilize this newly minted spiritual identity as a means to subtly separate itself from others, inadvertently creating divisions and hierarchies. This, of course, is the exact opposite direction to what the profound inner path was originally designed to reveal and accomplish: unity and interconnectedness. We are lovingly inviting you to gracefully step entirely out of this intricate economy of spiritual performance and self-aggrandizement. We are extending an invitation to embrace a genuine humility, a quality that is not synonymous with self-abasement or perceived smallness, but with an accurate understanding of your place within the greater whole. Humility, in its most authentic and profound sense, is a deeply resonant alignment with what is truly real, with the undeniable truth of existence. It is the courageous willingness to simply be an open, receptive instrument through which life flows, rather than striving to be the sole performer or the acclaimed artist of your own spiritual journey. It is the humble disposition to allow the source to simply be the source, without attempting to subtly transform that sacred origin into a mere mirror reflecting your personal self-image or egoic aspirations. The purest, most unadulterated spirituality is never about proclaiming, "Look at me." Instead, the essence of authentic spirituality is found in the quiet, yet profound, invitation to look within. This is not intended as a catchy slogan or a superficial, cute instruction. Rather, it is a profoundly lived orientation, an inherent directive that seamlessly integrates and becomes the very foundational pattern of your being, guiding every action and thought. You might then logically inquire, what precisely is meant to replace this pervasive worship of personality? What truly takes the place of this insistent need for external certainty and validation? What, then, is the authentic alternative to the deeply ingrained habit of clinging tightly to external forms and ephemeral structures? What ultimately replaces these external dependencies is the cultivation of a relationship with your own intrinsic, indwelling presence, a relationship so utterly direct and unmediated that it gradually becomes beautifully commonplace. And when we use the term commonplace, we mean it in the most sacred, most revered sense, something so intimately woven into the very fabric of your everyday existence that it is effortlessly accessible while you're simply washing the dishes, readily available as you engage in conversation with a beloved friend, palpable while you patiently wait in line at the grocery store, and deeply, wonderfully accessible even as life, in all its raw authenticity, remains imperfect and beautifully messy. When this profound inner contact truly becomes commonplace, deeply integrated into your being, you naturally cease creating idols out of teachers or external figures. This happens not out of disrespect, but because you no longer require a substitute or an intermediary for your own direct, unassailable knowing and experience of truth. You have found the source within. This is precisely why the truly great spiritual luminaries across all epochs and cultures have consistently emphasized one remarkably simple, yet profoundly transformative instruction: cease constructing your fundamental sense of identity from the ever-shifting perceptions and validations of the external world, and instead, learn to deeply, profoundly listen to the quiet wisdom within. Learn to listen not merely to the ephemeral stream of thoughts that cascade through your mind, and not exclusively to the fluctuating currents of your emotions, but rather, tune into the profound, silent intelligence that effortlessly undergirds and precedes both of these surface phenomena, the intelligence of your true self. This intrinsic, silent intelligence does not clamor for your attention. It never shouts with demanding urgency. It does not imperiously recruit you into some grand cause or spiritual crusade. It makes no demands that you must prove your inherent worth or value. It never pressures you into performing elaborate spiritual rituals or displays of piety. Instead, with exquisite gentleness and unwavering clarity, it simply reveals, step by unfolding step, what is intrinsically true, and it reveals it in a manner that invariably renders you more compassionate, more luminous, and more deeply integrated within your own authentic self. And here is a subtle, yet remarkably accurate, litmus test that you can readily employ to discern whether you are inadvertently slipping into the subtle snare of personality worship. When you are genuinely in direct, profound contact with the expansive field of presence, you will naturally experience a heightened sense of spaciousness and openness towards others, even those who hold opposing viewpoints or who openly disagree with you, precisely because your sense of identity is no longer fragile or contingent upon external agreement. It is anchored within. Conversely, when you are entangled in the patterns of personality worship, you often find yourself becoming increasingly defensive, more reactive to perceived threats, and perhaps even anxious to fiercely protect your chosen teacher, your spiritual tribe, or your particular worldview, because your fragile sense of identity has, perhaps unconsciously, become intricately fused with that external symbol or figure. The very moment you perceive defensiveness arising within you, especially when it surfaces under the guise of spiritual purity or righteousness, pause immediately. You have in that instant precisely located the hook. This hook is not inherently malicious or evil. It is simply an unmistakable signpost, gently yet firmly pointing you back to the profound interiority of your own being, reminding you where true authority lies. Beloved ones, you are not here on this profound journey to become mere collectors of sacred objects, revered names, or exclusive spiritual affiliations. Instead, you are here in your deepest essence to become a living, breathing clarity that silently and gracefully blesses everything it touches, every person it encounters, simply by its radiating presence. This profound blessing emanates not because you are somehow inherently special or uniquely gifted above others, but rather because you have consciously ceased the habitual outsourcing of the sacred and have, with profound intention, begun to fully embody it within your very being, letting it flow through you. When this authentic embodiment truly occurs, your entire life, in its quiet unfolding, transforms into a living teaching without any conscious effort on your part to instruct others. Your very presence becomes a subtle, yet powerful, invitation to deeper truth, without you ever having to overtly attempt to convert anyone to your beliefs. And your love expands to become a pervasive atmosphere, effortlessly permeating your surroundings, without any need for you to strive to be impressive or extraordinary in any way. And when you are truly ready, when you have gently, yet decisively loosened your tenacious grip on external forms, when you have finally ceased needing external permission or validation for your inherent worth, when you can gracefully receive guidance and wisdom without simultaneously surrendering your inner throne of sovereignty, then the next magnificent threshold will naturally, effortlessly open before you. This happens because you will begin to perceive with undeniable clarity that the profound new life you are seeking is not merely an addition to your old identity, like some ornamental decoration or a superficial embellishment. Instead, this new life is born through a far deeper, more courageous surrender, a silent and profound dissolution of the false, egoic center, culminating in a glorious rebirth into that which has, with infinite patience, always been quietly waiting within the deepest chambers of your being. Beloved ones, we now approach a significant threshold, a profound gateway that the superficial, egoic self will frequently attempt to subtly transform into a manageable concept. This inclination arises because concepts, by their very nature, feel inherently safe and controllable, whereas true thresholds are anything but. This is not to say that these thresholds are designed to inflict harm upon you, rather. Their profound function is to gently, yet decisively, dissolve away that which you have perhaps unconsciously been utilizing as a substitute for authentic, living reality, allowing you to access the real. In the very moment that this carefully constructed substitute begins to soften and dissipate, the mind may, quite understandably, experience a disorienting sensation, as if it is losing something absolutely essential to its very existence. Yet in truth, it is merely shedding a cumbersome costume, a fabricated garment, that it had mistakenly conflated with its own living, breathing skin, a liberation from a false covering. There exists a particular segment of human identity that has been meticulously trained, conditioned, and honed to operate almost entirely through the processes of interpretation, through the intricate naming and categorizing of phenomena, through the relentless management of outcomes, and through the constant, often exhausting, silent labor of attempting to keep the constructed self perpetually intact and in control. This identity, in itself, is not inherently wrong or flawed for its existence. It is simply, fundamentally, incomplete. And precisely because of its inherent incompleteness, it is unable to perceive or directly apprehend that which is infinitely deeper and more expansive than its own limited scope, unless and until it is willing to become humble, to become profoundly silent, and to gently, yet decisively, loosen its habitual grip of control and its need to define everything. Consider it akin to a meticulously crafted lens attempting to directly perceive its own inherent source of light, all while stubbornly insisting on maintaining a fixed, unchanging angle of observation. Such a lens may indeed capture myriad reflections. It may discern fleeting shadows, and it may even register various distortions of the light, but it can never truly apprehend the pure, unadulterated origin until it gracefully surrenders its compulsive need to control the very act of seeing itself. Therefore, when you encounter profound terms such as rebirth, awakening, or initiation, it is crucial for you to understand that we are not speaking of some dramatic, superficial reformation of your outward personality, nor are we referring to the adoption of a brand new spiritual identity that you might then proudly display to others as tangible proof of your advanced progress or enlightened status. For such an act is merely the old egoic self cleverly changing its attire, masking the same underlying patterns. And indeed, the old self, in its ingrained patterns, absolutely adores new clothes, new masks, new roles to play, anything to maintain its sense of importance. What we are speaking of is something infinitely simpler, yet immeasurably more profound. It is, at its core, a conscious migration of your fundamental dwelling place, a radical reallocation of your very sense of being, shifting from the carefully constructed, superficial egoic center to the vibrant, living presence that effortlessly undergirds and precedes it, the very ground of your being. And it is this profound, internal relocation that initiates the miraculous process by which the entire external world begins to appear undeniably different to you. This transformation occurs not because the world itself has been forcibly compelled to alter its nature, but rather because you're no longer perceiving reality from the same fragile, limited, and often anxious vantage point, but from a place of spaciousness and truth. There is a discernible and significant reason why so many sincere seekers frequently encounter profound struggles at this particular juncture, even after having experienced moments of exquisite beauty and luminous clarity. This persistent challenge arises because the default mode of the mind inherently desires to add spirituality to itself, in much the same way that one might acquire a new skill, cultivate a novel hobby, or learn a new language, essentially, something that the existing, constructed identity can then proudly claim ownership of. And by doing so, the egoic mind can maintain its familiar internal governance, perpetuating its ingrained patterns, all while simultaneously enjoying the comfortable illusion of feeling more elevated or spiritually advanced, without truly transforming. The deeper, more authentic path, however, does not operate by adding anything at all. Instead, it profoundly reveals. It meticulously unveils the truth that the self you have so diligently defended, refined, and striven to perfect is not, in fact, the fundamental origin or source of your life. Rather, it is merely an intricate pattern, a fleeting wave, riding upon the boundless ocean of life itself. And this profound perception, this crystal-clear insight, is liberating precisely because it utterly removes the immense, often exhausting, pressure to perpetually maintain that intricate pattern in an impossibly flawless state, freeing you from the burden of perfection. This is why, in our own unique way of speaking, we consistently emphasize that the superficial, ego-based identity simply cannot receive the deepest, most expansive truths of the spirit in the very manner that it habitually attempts to. This inherent limitation arises because it relentlessly endeavors to translate the infinite, the boundless, and the ineffable into something finite, controllable, and utterly manageable. It incessantly craves external certainty. It demands precise timelines and predictable outcomes. It yearns for tangible guarantees. It seeks verifiable proofs that can be meticulously collected and stored. And ultimately, it desires, above all else, to become the self-appointed manager and orchestrator of its own spiritual awakening, rather than surrendering to it. And yet, true presence, the deepest presence, an intrinsic aspect of your very being, utterly refuses to be subjected to the confines of management or the grasp of external control. This profound presence can certainly be fully experienced and deeply felt, yet remains fundamentally beyond the reach of human manipulation or domination. And so, the very first genuine initiation into this deeper reality isn't merely an isolated event, a singular moment in time that you might mark on a calendar. Rather, it is that crucial, transformative instant when you finally recognize with startling clarity that your ingrained and often relentless need to meticulously control every aspect of your existence has, in fact, served as a compensatory mechanism, a hollow substitute for authentic trust. We wish to approach the term dying with immense caution and deliberate care, precisely because the human mind, in its characteristic patterns, tends either to overly romanticize it, imbuing it with dramatic, idealized notions, or conversely, to recoil from it in profound fear and apprehension. Both of these knee-jerk responses we emphasize unfortunately miss the entire crucial point of what is truly meant. What we endeavor to convey is this: within the intricate tapestry of human experience, there exists a pervasive, false center of identity, an ego-driven construct that operates under the mistaken belief it must perpetually labor to hold reality together, to maintain its cohesion through incessant personal effort, ceaseless striving, and individual exertion. This illusory center, this relentless striving self, is not only profoundly exhausting, draining your vital energy and spirit, but it is also, at its very core, the fertile ground from which subtle, insidious fear inevitably springs. For anything that perpetually demands such tireless, constant effort to be sustained invariably carries within its very structure the gnawing anxiety of potential collapse, the inherent fear that it might at any moment unravel or cease to exist. This death, therefore, is understood as the profound, liberating surrender of this very false center, not a surrender achieved through acts of violence, nor through harsh self-rejection or punitive denial, but rather through a gentle yet resolute, silent willingness to finally cease the exhausting pretense that you are the sole author or ultimate arbiter of your own life. It is the deep, intimate readiness to embrace and merge with the flow of the life that has, in truth, always ceaselessly been you. This profoundly transformative experience truly constitutes an initiation, precisely because it absolutely cannot be approached or executed as a mere performance, a staged act designed for external validation or internal self-congratulation. You cannot logically figure out your way into this state of being, nor can you cunningly maintain it through sheer intellectual cleverness, strategic maneuvering, or any form of self-serving ingenuity. Instead, this profound shift arises organically, emerging from a distinct and unyielding form of inner honesty, a radical self-sincerity where you finally acknowledge, perhaps for the very first time without any wavering or self-deception, that the intricate array of strategies upon which you have so heavily relied throughout your life strategies, such as rigorous control, exhaustive analysis, the relentless pursuit of perfection, the continuous project of self-improvement mistakenly adopted as your core identity, and even the accumulation of spiritual knowledge used as another layer of self-definition are ultimately incapable of delivering the profound sense of fulfillment and belonging that your heart is genuinely, ceaselessly yearning for. Your deepest longing, in essence, is for an authentic sense of being inherently sustained, cradled, and supported by a reality far more expansive and infinitely deeper than the limited capacities of your own personal management, your individual efforts to orchestrate and control. As this deep, unwavering honesty within you truly begins to ripen and mature, something profoundly significant invariably starts to unfold. And at first, these nascent changes might indeed feel quite strange, even unsettling to your accustomed self. The powerful, familiar motivators that once relentlessly drove your actions and shaped your desires begin to lose their compelling flavor, their magnetic allure, becoming bland and unappealing. Similarly, the long-standing incentives that once held you captive, binding you to certain behaviors and outcomes, simply cease to exert their accustomed grip. Intriguingly, while the ancient, Ingrained fears may still occasionally surface, casting their familiar shadows. They no longer manifest as an unassailable, unquestionable reality that dictates your every move. Your analytical mind, in its attempt to categorize and understand, might readily interpret this emerging state as a form of unsettling emptiness, a disorienting confusion, or an alarming lack of clear direction. However, in countless instances, what the mind perceives as a void is, in fact, the very genesis of profound clarity, because your authentic inner being is now actively creating expansive new space, making room for an entirely different kind of guidance, an intuitive orientation that does not originate from ingrained habit, past conditioning, or learned responses. In our extensive observation of your species, across countless individual journeys, this phenomenon stands out as one of the most consistent and unmistakable signatures of approaching the threshold of deeper awareness, a distinct and often disorienting period during which your ancient, long-trusted inner compass begins to visibly waver, its needle fluttering uncertainly. This isn't, we hasten to reassure you, an indication that you are somehow failing, losing your way, or making erroneous choices. On the contrary, it signifies that this internal navigational instrument is undergoing a profound and necessary recalibration, shifting its primary orientation from the deeply ingrained question of what will reliably guarantee my safety and significance as an individual person, to the far more expansive and authentic inquiry of what truly resonates as truth within the boundless expanse of presence. The person self, that familiar ego-driven construct, is fundamentally oriented towards self-protection and the relentless pursuit of conquest, constantly seeking to fortify its boundaries and assert its dominance. In stark contrast, the present self, your essential, authentic nature, is inherently guided by a profound yearning for alignment and unwavering integrity. One continuously engages in a transactional negotiation with life, attempting to bend circumstances to its will, while the other gracefully and profoundly cooperates with the inherent flow of life, even in the midst of dynamic action. You may recall our previous guidance, wherein we emphasized that this profound inner place we speak of is not a literal geography, not a physical building you must painstakingly construct or enter, nor is it a ceremonial space requiring specific rituals or proper access codes. Let us now further refine and elaborate upon this crucial distinction, applying it directly to the powerful concept of spiritual rebirth or renewal. The pivotal turning point, the profound shift in your consciousness, does not occur because you miraculously stumble upon or seek out some uniquely special external environment, a secluded retreat, a hallowed sanctuary, or a perfect setting. On the contrary, it arises precisely because you make a conscious, profound choice to allow your internal environment, your inner landscape of being, to assume primacy, to become the dominant and foundational reality. Indeed, the external world around you can be undeniably noisy, relentlessly crowded, and profoundly imperfect, replete with its myriad challenges and distractions. And yet, even amidst such seemingly unfavorable conditions, the sacred threshold can still gracefully swing open. This is because the opening of the threshold is not contingent upon or dictated by external circumstances or pristine conditions. Rather, it hinges entirely upon your inner disposition, your deep, unwavering willingness. This crucial disposition we refer to is not about forcefully compelling yourself to believe in a particular dogma or adopting a specific set of tenets. Rather, true disposition manifests as the gentle, yet profound, yes, that you inwardly offer when you finally cease to actively resist direct, unmediated contact with what truly is. And let us be unequivocally clear, this direct contact is not some convoluted, intricate process. It is not an experience reserved exclusively for a rarefied spiritual elite, nor is it a coveted reward bestowed upon those who happen to possess the correct philosophical understanding or adhere to a specific spiritual doctrine. On the contrary, it is a remarkably simple, vibrant, and immediate encounter with the inherent presence that is already undeniably here, already deeply embedded within you, already breathing the very breath of your life. You are, in this very moment, already perceiving the world through the lens of its eyes. The sole, singular barrier that obstructs this seamless connection is the tenacious insistence of the I, as the constructed manager, that egoic identity built on control and effort, that it must be the one to orchestrate, dictate, and ultimately control the parameters of this sacred encounter. Therefore, in this particular segment of our ongoing message to you, we extend a distinctly clear and unambiguous orientation. Your fundamental task is not to meticulously fabricate or artificially generate a spiritual experience through strenuous effort or elaborate techniques. Instead, your essential work, your true calling, lies in simply becoming profoundly available and receptive to that which is already inherently true, already an undeniable reality. This profound availability can manifest in ways as humble and unassuming as simply pausing for a brief, intentional moment in the midst of your busy, demanding day and allowing yourself to openly admit, I genuinely do not know how to forcibly steer or compel my life into a state of lasting peace through sheer willpower or control. And then, crucially, to allow this honest, unvarnished admission to transform itself into an expansive, inviting door, a portal to new possibilities, rather than allowing it to settle within you as a perceived defeat or a sign of inadequacy. The ego-driven mind, ever quick to judge and categorize, will invariably label this act of surrender as a profound weakness. However, your deeper, discerning soul intuitively recognizes it as the precise, vital opening, the receptive channel through which the transformative power of grace can finally flow and be truly experienced. For here, indeed, is what profoundly begins to occur when that tenacious, false center of identity starts to gently soften, to relinquish its rigid grip. A far more profound and intrinsic intelligence, an innate wisdom, begins to stir and move within you. This intelligence does not manifest as a booming, authoritative command or a dramatic, theatrical prophecy. Instead, it moves with exquisite subtlety, emerging as an undeniable, clear sense of what is genuinely aligned with your deepest truth and what, conversely, is not. It manifests as a palpable, internal containment, a gentle yet firm check that arises precisely when you are on the verge of speaking or acting from a place of ingrained reactivity. It moves as a quiet, unassuming courage that surfaces just as you contemplate abandoning your integrity or yourself. It reveals itself as an unexpected wave of profound kindness directed towards someone you habitually use to judge or criticize. It moves as a firm, clear refusal to participate in the tired, old games of the ego, not out of any sense of personal superiority or moral high ground, but purely from a place of unblemished clarity and an inability to engage in pretense. These dear beloved souls are not flashy, glamorous trophies or public accolades that you can proudly display, but they constitute the earliest, most authentic evidence that a significantly deeper, more resonant life is truly beginning to take firm root and flourish within you. And it is precisely at this juncture that a great many humans frequently succumb to a pervasive impatience. They eagerly anticipate and demand that the threshold experience should immediately produce instant, tangible external results, desiring quick fixes and visible improvements in their outer circumstances. And indeed, sometimes external conditions do visibly shift and transform, precisely because profound inner alignment naturally carries its own inherent consequences and ripple effects. However, the profound, ultimate point of this journey is not merely the superficial enhancement or temporary improvement of your outer life as the grand, culminating prize. The authentic, central point lies, rather, in the profound birth and emergence of an entirely new mode of being, a way of inhabiting your existence that allows you to navigate through any and all superficial life circumstances with an unprecedented degree of inner freedom, grace, and equanimity. When this deeper truth is truly perceived and absorbed, you instinctively cease to approach presence as a mere provider of solutions, a cosmic vending machine for your problems. Instead, you begin to profoundly recognize and embody presence as your intrinsic, authentic, and foundational identity itself. And this profound, unvarnished recognition of presence as your true identity is precisely what the old self that egoic construct you've long inhabited finds utterly intolerable for any extended period, without either gracefully surrendering its grip or cleverly contriving to fashion a new, more sophisticated mask. Therefore, we earnestly implore you to keenly observe the subtle, yet persistent impulse within yourself to create these new masks. for this drive is often deceptively subtle and insidious. It can manifest itself in seemingly benign declarations such as, now I am truly spiritual, or I am finally awakened, or I have definitively crossed a significant threshold. Yet, the very instant you feel that compelling urge, that internal imperative to declare this newfound state as a fixed, unshakable identity, you have already inadvertently begun the process of transmogrifying the vibrant, living, unfolding truth into a static concept, a mere mental construct. The most profound migration, this deep inner journey, does not require public announcement or outward declaration it demands. Instead, profound embodiment of full, lived integration. It necessitates that you courageously choose to live, breathe, and operate from that quiet, unwavering silent center. Even in those moments when no one outwardly applauds your authentic choices, even when it feels inconvenient or challenging, and even when it irrevocably means that you can no longer comfortably attribute blame to the external world for your own internal state of being. Now, let us illuminate a particular pattern, a recurring motif that we have observed consistently across countless seekers and earnest individuals on this path. Frequently, there arises a distinct period of profound disorientation, an internal bewilderment that closely resembles a kind of interior blindness. This is not, to be clear, a literal physical blindness, but rather an acute, unsettling sensation that the long-established, familiar ways of perceiving, interpreting, and understanding the world simply no longer function effectively, or perhaps at all. This experience can be profoundly unsettling, even alarming, precisely because humans tend to cling with great tenacity to their familiar modes of navigation, to the known pathways of their perception, even when those very pathways are, in fact, deeply rooted in anxiety and fear. Yet, ironically, this very state of not seeing is more often than not a profound act of grace, a divine mercy. It serves a crucial purpose. It gently but firmly prevents you from continuing to steer the course of your life exclusively through the constricting and often distorted filters of your old, outdated perceptions. It artfully creates an essential pause, a sacred hiatus, and within that profound stillness of the pause, something entirely new and authentic can finally begin to speak to you. When this other thing, this deeper intelligence, finally begins to speak from within that sacred pause, it does not, significantly, flatter the ego-driven person self with grand affirmations or inflate its sense of importance. It does not perpetuate or nourish the narrative of your own unique specialness, nor does it endeavor to construct any new, rigid hierarchies of spiritual attainment. Instead, with unwavering clarity and elegant simplicity, it merely reveals what is fundamentally true, what inherently is, and gently but firmly invites you, asks you, to live authentically from that revealed truth. This is precisely why the profound process of rebirth or spiritual renewal often appears to the logical, controlling mind as an undeniable loss, a relinquishing of certainty and familiar structures. Yet, to the expansive, discerning soul, it is experienced as an immense, liberating relief. The mind, in its clinging to control, perceives a loss of its accustomed grip, while the soul, in its inherent wisdom, finally gains a true and abiding home within itself. So, then, how do you effectively cooperate with this profound threshold experience without inadvertently transforming it into yet another strenuous effort, another task to be conquered by the ego? The answer lies in the conscious and consistent practice of surrender, not, importantly, in the naive sense of carelessly dismantling your healthy boundaries or becoming gullible or vulnerable. Rather, it is surrender in the far more profound sense of gently, yet firmly relaxing your tenacious grip on the ingrained need to perpetually act as the sole manager and orchestrator of reality itself. You learn to keenly perceive that pivotal moment, that subtle internal cue, when you are about to exert undue force to push against the natural flow of life. You become acutely aware of the instant you are about to desperately grasp for the comforting illusion of certainty, seeking refuge in fixed outcomes or predetermined paths. You precisely recognize the impulse when you are on the verge of deploying spiritual ideas or concepts as a defensive armor, shielding yourself from vulnerability or the raw immediacy of life. And instead of yielding to these old patterns, you consciously, intentionally return to the most exquisitely simple and direct form of contact, the deeply felt sensation of pure being, the silent, resonant I am that underlies all experience, the undeniable presence that transcends any personal narrative or story. You allow this foundational presence to become your unwavering ground, your anchor, and you consciously choose to make your subsequent decisions and actions from this deeply rooted place. Not from a place of panicked reaction, not from a desire to maintain a particular image or external persona, and certainly not from the ingrained reflex of protecting your constructed self at the profound cost of your own innate integrity and authenticity. This, indeed, is the vibrant and transformative threshold of rebirth, not a singular dramatic event, but rather an ongoing, organic process, a series of seemingly small, incremental surrenders that, when woven together over time, eventually coalesce into an entirely new and expansive pattern of being. This gradual unfolding continues until one profound day, you awaken to the unmistakable realization that you are no longer operating from the same familiar, ego-driven center as before. Your entire sense of identity, your very essence of who you perceive yourself to be, has shifted in such an undeniable and fundamental way that it simply cannot be argued with, refuted, or contested, precisely because it is so deeply and viscerally lived. And within this awakened mode of living, this embodied experience, you begin to intrinsically understand why the spiritual path has always, inevitably, necessitated a profound kind of interior undoing, a gentle yet thorough dismantling of old structures, before it could possibly reveal its true and magnificent gifts. And as this essential process of interior undoing continues to deepen and permeate your being, as the false, egoic center discovers, often with a profound sense of dismay, that it can no longer maintain its accustomed throne indefinitely, a distinct and often challenging passage frequently ensues. This passage, it is crucial to understand, is neither an unfortunate error, nor a divine punishment, nor even a disheartening sign that you have somehow chosen the wrong path. Instead, it is a sacred corridor of profound purification, designed by life itself to meticulously remove the very last, lingering residues of your ingrained dependence on personal control and individual management. It is a corridor that many of your most revered mystics and sages have bravely attempted to articulate and describe, often with a trembling honesty born of direct experience, precisely because it represents the pivotal juncture where the old self, the ego you've long identified with, truly confronts the undeniable truth that it cannot ultimately survive as the sole, sovereign ruler of your precious life. And within the stark clarity of this profound perception, the deeper, more authentic life that has always been waiting finally finds the necessary space and freedom to fully emerge, to powerfully rise and assert itself. Indeed, there exists a particular, deeply significant passage along this spiritual path, one that unfortunately, very few among you have ever been gently taught how to name with kindness, understanding, or compassion. And precisely because it has remained largely unnamed, left without a clear, compassionate designation, it has become all too easy to profoundly misinterpret its true nature and purpose. Consequently, due to this pervasive misunderstanding, a multitude of sincere and earnest seekers have instinctively attempted to escape it, to fix it, to heroically overcome it, or to ingeniously spiritualize their way around it, employing various stratagems and mental acrobatics. Yet, paradoxically, this challenging phase was in reality the very corridor, the sacred passageway, through which the deeper, more authentic life was already, lovingly and persistently, escorting them home. This is the crucial phase where your venerable, old internal operating system, the entire framework of your egoic identity, and its functional patterns begins its inevitable and necessary shutdown sequence. This occurs not because you have somehow failed, nor because you have made an erroneous choice, and certainly not because life is cruelly punishing you for daring to awaken to a greater truth. Rather, it happens because the very identity from which you have primarily lived your life simply cannot accompany you, cannot seamlessly transition into the heightened frequency of truth and expanded awareness that you are now intrinsically capable of sustaining. And much like an old garment, a once cherished piece of clothing that perhaps kept you warm and comfortable for a season, but now noticeably restricts your movement and limits your freedom. This old identity begins to gently loosen its grip, it starts to fray at the edges, and it gradually begins to fall away. For a period, you might experience a profound sense of loss, feeling as if something essential, something vital to your being, is irrevocably leaving you, when in truth, it is merely the false center, the illusory ego, finally relinquishing its long-held throne. We have observed this precise, intricate process unfolding across countless lifetimes, within numerous worlds, and among a multitude of species who, in their own unique ways and diverse languages, are all learning this same profound lesson. When a being has, for an extended period, fundamentally relied upon an intricate web of strategies such as rigid control, unwavering certainty, meticulous predictability, outward performance, and a fixed self-definition as its primary mode of navigating through existence, the initial taste of genuine, unmediated communion can indeed feel like an immense and liberating relief. However, often quite unexpectedly, this very communion can then feel like a profound exposure, a stripping away of familiar layers. This is because authentic communion inherently dissolves the deep-seated need for those old, established defenses you've painstakingly built up over time. And let us assure you, these defenses do not simply exit gracefully or politely. Oh no, they vigorously protest, they cunningly negotiate, and they artfully conjure up myriad persuasive reasons why you absolutely must retreat back into the old room of your former self. This insistent pull backward arises because that old room, despite its limitations, is intimately familiar, and familiarity, in the mind's often deceptive calculus, serves as a convincing, yet ultimately false, counterfeit for genuine safety and security. So, let us articulate this truth in a manner that your heart can truly absorb and utilize. This challenging yet profoundly liberative corridor is, at its essence, the gradual, systematic undoing and unraveling of those intricate strategies and coping mechanisms that you have, for so long, mistakenly conflated and confused with your authentic self. Initially, this process can be remarkably subtle, almost imperceptible. A powerful desire that once relentlessly propelled you forward, compelling your actions and shaping your aspirations, simply ceases to exert its former grip, its potent allure. And you find yourself wondering, without clear explanation, why this shift has occurred. A pervasive fear that habitually used to ensnare you, hooking your attention and dictating your responses, may still surface, but it no longer lands within your being with the same undeniable authority or paralyzing force. Again, you may not immediately comprehend the reason for this diminished power. The ancient, deeply ingrained reward circuits of your culture, the craving for approval, the drive for victory, the compulsion to constantly prove your worth, the need to strike the correct posture, the desire to be perceived as the one who possesses all the answers, all these once potent incentives begin to taste flat, like dry, stale bread, utterly devoid of sustenance or satisfaction. And in response to this, you might even find yourself engaging in self-judgment, perhaps believing that you're becoming detached or indifferent, when in fact, you're profoundly becoming less viable, less susceptible to external manipulation or the demands of the egoic marketplace. The prevailing system, with its myriad inducements and pressures, cannot easily direct or control a being who is no longer intrinsically motivated by its ancient, worn-out currencies, and your deeper, inner world intrinsically understands this truth long before your rational mind can formulate a coherent explanation. And this is precisely the reason why the restless mind, in its persistent quest for stability and control, sometimes flounders and struggles intensely in this phase, frantically launching itself into new obsessions, adopting novel spiritual identities, or initiating urgent new projects, anything, truly, to regain a sense of solidity and firm ground. Then, inevitably, the corridor deepens, its passage becoming more profound and encompassing. It is at this precise juncture that many of you, in quiet, private moments, whisper the question, often laced with a touch of bewilderment or apprehension, what, indeed, is happening to me? This introspection arises because the reality of this experience often bears little resemblance to the popularized, dramatic stories of awakening that have been marketed to you, narratives where everything instantaneously becomes luminous and effortlessly easy, where you supposedly float through your days with an unshakable, constant certainty. In truth, for a significant season, the experience is frequently the profound opposite. The old, comforting certainties, the bedrock of your former understanding, begin to dissolve and disappear. The familiar, tried-and-true methods that once offered direction simply cease to function effectively. The trusted, ancient compass of your inner knowing loses its persuasive power, its magnetic pull, leaving you in a unique kind of interior twilight, a liminal space where you intuitively know you cannot turn back without betraying your deepest truth, without lying to yourself. Yet you also cannot fully discern or perceive the path ahead with your old, accustomed eyes. This very state we declare is sacred. We bestow upon it the designation of sacredness because it marks the pivotal moment when you finally, irrevocably, cease to pretend that you can somehow lead your life into a state of authentic freedom using the very same ingrained patterns of control that, paradoxically, constructed your initial cage in the first place. The human mind, in its habitual approach to growth and change, often desires and anticipates that liberation will arrive as a grand addition, a heaping accumulation of more knowledge, a collection of advanced techniques, a series of identity upgrades, or the meticulous polishing of its self-image. However, genuine, transformative liberation frequently arrives in precisely the opposite guise, as a profound subtraction, a radical simplification, and a meticulous removal of all the superfluous, distracting noise that you have, perhaps unconsciously, employed to assiduously avoid direct, unmediated contact with your essential self and with reality. And as this incessant internal and external noise mercifully begins to diminish and recede, the resulting silence might initially feel unsettling, even frightening, appearing as a vast, unnerving emptiness. This sensation persists until you experience the crucial realization, the profound understanding, that it is not, in fact, an emptiness at all. It is instead pure expansive space. And it is within this sacred, open space that true, authentic, and intuitive guidance can finally, unmistakably, be heard and received. This is precisely why some of your most revered mystics and spiritual teachers, grappling to articulate the ineffable, have employed the evocative phrase, the dark night. While we ourselves choose neither to romanticize nor to overly dramatize this experience, for it is neither a coveted badge of spiritual achievement nor a personal disgrace to be born in shame. It is, quite simply and profoundly, what inevitably transpires when the false center, that egoic construct, progressively loses its accustomed access to its usual levers of control, its familiar mechanisms of self-management, and the deeper, authentic center of your being begins, for the very first time, to truly breathe and operate entirely on its own accord. And yes, our beloved friends, it is rarely, if ever, a singular isolated night. This process tends to manifest in distinct, undulating waves, much like the rhythmic ebb and flow of the ocean, precisely because the intricate identity you are in the process of gracefully releasing is comprised of multiple, interwoven layers. And each successive layer gently yet firmly dissolves, relinquishing its hold. Only when you have cultivated sufficient inner strength and unwavering trust to genuinely let it go, without immediately rushing to construct a new, equally restrictive substitute in its place. One such wave, for instance, might manifest as the profound collapse of your deeply ingrained need to always be impeccably right, to constantly justify your positions and perspectives. Another wave could be the significant dissolution of your pervasive need to be universally liked or accepted, to seek constant external validation for your worth. Yet another might involve the unexpected crumbling of your long-held belief that you must always possess complete knowledge of what comes next, that you must have every future step meticulously planned. And still another powerful wave could be the profound collapse of your enduring fascination with your own personal story, the incessant, often loud narration of me and my journey, which, while not inherently erroneous, frequently overshadows and drowns out the quiet, profound presence that inherently resides beneath it. Each successive wave of this undoing process initially feels like a significant loss, a stripping away of something vital. This continues until you consciously perceive, with an awakened awareness, what undeniably remains when the wave has gracefully passed. And what invariably remains is always fundamentally simpler, profoundly quieter, exquisitely cleaner, and undeniably more real than anything you had previously clung to. Now allow us to offer you the single most crucial and profoundly important refinement we can impart regarding this particular corridor. For understanding this will effectively prevent you from inadvertently transforming this sacred process into a relentless war against yourself. Our unequivocal guidance is this: do not engage in a futile struggle against that which is naturally and organically dissolving within you. To struggle, to resist, or to actively fight against these receding aspects of yourself is, in fact, still a profound act of loyalty to them. It is still to be in a relationship with them, and, crucially, it is still to inadvertently feed their very existence. Instead, we urge you to cultivate and practice a gentle, discerning kind of non-participation with these ancient, familiar impulses, much in the same way that you would allow a powerful, passing storm to rage and dissipate without feeling the need to heroically step directly into its midst simply to prove your bravery or fortitude. You do not, in any theatrical or aggressive sense, need to conquer your fears. You simply need to cease granting them the esteemed and influential position of governor or ultimate authority over your life. There will, without doubt, be numerous moments when you feel an intense, almost irresistible impulse to frantically seek something external, anything that might momentarily restore that comforting, albeit illusory, sensation of control. And in those vulnerable moments, we earnestly invite you to keenly observe, with gentle curiosity, just how swiftly and ingeniously your mind attempts to, by certainty, by desperately grasping onto a familiar narrative, clinging to someone else's opinion, seizing upon a prediction about the future, adopting a new mental framework, or finding a compelling distraction that merely appears to be productive action. You do not need to shame this impulse. There is no judgment required. You simply need to observe it with sufficient clarity and discerning awareness so that you are empowered to consciously choose a different, more aligned response. Because ultimately, this profound corridor is repeatedly asking one singular, pivotal thing from you: the deep, unwavering disposition to courageously remain in the unknown without ever betraying your own profound inner truth. The unknown, it is vital to understand, is not synonymous with ignorance. Far from it. The unknown, in this context, represents the profound liberation from what we term falsified knowledge, that intricate web of beliefs and understandings that you have acquired and held onto out of fear rather than genuine insight. Falsified knowledge is precisely when you prematurely claim an illusory certainty solely to assuage your anxieties and quiet your fears. It is when you mistakenly elevate your feelings of anxiety to the status of genuine guidance, simply because they feel urgent and demand immediate attention. It is when you desperately cling to a preconceived mental map, a rigid framework of how things should be, because you harbor a deep-seated terror of navigating life without one. In stark contrast, authentic, real knowledge does not loudly proclaim itself or clamor for attention. Real knowledge does not feel the compulsive need to constantly prove its validity to you every 10 minutes. Instead, real knowledge arrives within you as a quiet, undeniable inevitability, a profound and self-evident recognition that requires no external argument, no forceful persuasion, and no elaborate intellectual defense. And one of the most fundamental reasons why this challenging yet transformative corridor exists is precisely to systematically starve that pervasive falsified knowledge, allowing it to wither and recede, so that the radiant clarity of real knowledge can finally become unmistakably obvious and self-apparent. Many among you will, in this profound phase, discover with startling clarity that you have, for a significant portion of your lives, implicitly operated under the terms of a hidden, unarticulated agreement. And the unspoken condition of this agreement has been, I will grant my trust to life, but only if life consistently behaves according to my expectations and desires. This transformative corridor, however, effectively brings that unspoken agreement to an undeniable conclusion, not by imposing punishment upon you, but rather by revealing, with profound clarity, its inherent impossibility and its utter futility. For life, in its fundamental essence, is dynamic movement. It is ceaseless change. It is the rhythmic ebb and flow of tides, the ever-shifting patterns of weather, and the continuous unfolding of cycles. And if your declared trust in life inherently requires the imposition of your personal control, then what you are engaging in is not authentic trust at all. It is, in truth, a conditional negotiation, a conditional bargain. The deepest, most profound presence within you does not engage in negotiation with reality. Instead, it gracefully rests as reality itself, an inseparable part of its unfolding. And from this deep, abiding rest, all subsequent action that emerges becomes intrinsically cleaner, significantly less frantic or effortful, and ultimately, far more precise and aligned. Occasionally, in the very heart of this profound corridor, you may experience a powerful sensation of powerlessness, not, let it be clear, in the disheartening sense of despair or hopelessness, but rather in the acutely disorienting realization that the old self, that familiar egoic identity, can no longer locate or rely upon its usual, established footholds and points of leverage. And it is precisely at this vulnerable, liminal point that the pivotal turning happens, the profound shift in your experience. For when those old, accustomed footholds inevitably vanish and are no longer accessible, you discover, often with a gasp of surprised wonder, that you're still undeniably here, still drawing breath, still being profoundly sustained by an unseen hand, still vibrantly alive, and still inherently capable. And something deep within you, something far more fundamental than your intellect, begins to realize, almost with a sense of astonishing novelty, that you never were, in truth, sustained by your elaborate strategies. You have always been, and continue to be, nurtured and held by something infinitely more intimate, more foundational, and more enduring than any of your egoic contrivances. It is quite frequently at this profound juncture that the subtle yet unmistakable inner voice begins to become distinctly audible and felt. However, we must gently correct a common assumption that many hold regarding this inner voice. It does not always manifest as articulate words or clearly formulated sentences. Instead, it can take myriad forms. It might simply be an undeniable, visceral sense of not this, a clear internal no to something misaligned. It could present itself as a gentle yet persistent tug, an intuitive pull guiding you steadfastly towards what is profoundly honest and true. It might manifest as a sudden, unequivocal inability to lie to yourself without immediately feeling a palpable sense of internal friction, discomfort, or dissonance. It could also be a quiet, insistent urge to extend forgiveness to someone whom you were absolutely convinced you could never, under any circumstances, forgive, not because that individual has necessarily earned it in your estimation, but because you have, quite simply, come to the profound realization that you are utterly finished carrying the burdensome weight of unforgiveness within your own heart. It may even arrive as a newfound tenderness and compassionate regard for yourself, a radical shift where you cease treating your inherent humanity as an adversary or an obstacle, and instead begin to gently nurture and retrain it as a fertile field, patiently being reseeded and cultivated in the expansive soil of love. And yes, our beloved friends, this corridor can indeed feel intensely challenging at times, precisely because the tenacious old identity, sensing its imminent dissolution, often attempts one final, desperate series of negotiations. It might bargain, saying, if you can just give me absolute certainty, then I will surrender. If you can provide irrefutable proof, then I will relax my guard. If you will simply show me the complete, detailed plan for what lies ahead, then I will finally trust. The deeper presence, however, does not yield to or satisfy these conditional negotiations. This is not because it is deliberately withholding something precious from you, but rather because to satisfy such demands would be to perpetuate and maintain the false center's illusion of control. The false self can no longer remain in command. Instead, this profound presence offers you something that might strike the rational mind as almost offensively, disarmingly simple. It offers the next honest step. Not an intricate blueprint for the next 50 steps, not an ironclad guarantee of future outcomes, nor a dramatic, sweeping vision designed to make the personal ego feel profoundly special or uniquely chosen. It simply illuminates the very next step, one that is truly honest, impeccably clean, genuinely feasible, and perfectly aligned with your deeper truth. This is precisely why the experience of the corridor, this transitional passage, functions as a powerful purification. It illuminates, with a gentle yet undeniable clarity, all those areas where you have unconsciously or consciously attempted to wield spirituality as a tool, a sophisticated mechanism to control external results and engineer your preferred outcomes. It then, with exquisite tenderness, begins to dismantle and remove this subtle temptation, rendering such manipulative efforts utterly ineffective. This process continues until you finally grasp the profound truth that the original invitation was never, in its essence, use the infinite to get what you want. The true invitation has always been allow the infinite to live as you. This distinction represents an immensely different orientation, a radically shifted perspective, because it inherently demands a deep and complete surrender of self-glorification, a letting go of ingrained self-image, and a relinquishing of the persistent, often subconscious, need to be the one perpetually in charge, orchestrating every detail. So, whether you find yourself navigating the depths of this corridor at this very moment, or if you are destined to enter its quiet passage at a later stage, here is our guidance. Delivered with absolute clarity and compassion, do not interpret this as a definitive sign that you are broken or fundamentally flawed. Do not mistakenly perceive this period as evidence that you are regressing, falling backward on your spiritual path. And certainly, do not conclude that you have somehow lost an essential part of yourself or forfeited a hard-won spiritual gain. Instead, allow it to signify precisely what it is: a sacred, transformative passageway where the outdated, constrained, and fear-based old self gradually, gracefully, loses its perceived throne, and the deeper, more authentic, and eternal self learns to stand entirely on its own, without relying on any borrowed or externally validated certainties. Grant yourself the profound permission to simply be more uncomplicated, more straightforward than you have accustomed yourself to being. Allow yourself the grace of not knowing, if only for a few moments, without succumbing to the familiar grip of panic or anxiety. Give yourself leave to rest, truly rest, from the compulsive and often exhausting need to interpret, analyze, and dissect every single experience, every interaction, every fleeting thought. And lovingly permit yourself to let ancient desires and ingrained patterns gently fade in the background, without the immediate, desperate impulse to replace them with new ones. This profound process is not a sign of your disappearance, quite the contrary. It is, in its deepest sense, your return. For what emerges on the other side of this corridor, once it has meticulously and silently completed its transformative work, is not a more boisterous personality, adorned with even brighter, more impressive spiritual garments. Rather, it is the blossoming of a life lived with greater transparency, a life significantly less cluttered and dominated by the narrow confines of the personal self, a life capable of moving through the world with an entirely different kind of strength, a strength that is fundamentally pure and aligned. It is not the force derived from domination, nor the strength born of relentless performance or constant striving for external validation. Instead, it is the quiet, indomitable power of an alignment so pristine, so utterly clean and integrated, that it begins quite naturally to dissolve internal distortions and energetic blockages at their very root, addressing the core issues rather than merely their symptoms. And once these deep-seated distortions are in the process of gracefully dissolving, you will find yourself inherently prepared to truly comprehend what the Christic frequency embodies, not as an abstract symbol, not as a fashionable brand, not as a mere intellectual concept, but as an active, living law of pure love, perpetually moving and animating within the vast expanse of consciousness. We now arrive at a pivotal juncture where the path you walk ceases to feel like a solitary, personal healing narrative and begins, instead, to unveil itself as a living, breathing law embedded within the very fabric of consciousness. For as the ancient patterns, the habitual ways of being, have gradually started to loosen their grip, and the false center of ego no longer dictates every moment, no longer functions as a silent, omnipresent governor over your inner world, you naturally and intuitively begin to perceive that the true adversary was never truly external. It was never a specific person, never a particular group, never a sensational headline, never a clear-cut villain you could easily point to and confidently defeat. Rather, the true adversary is an insidious distortion deeply ingrained within the human construct itself, a distortion that relentlessly recreates the very experience of separation, even as our mouths utter words of love and unity. We will name this pervasive distortion with both tenderness and precise accuracy. It is the deep-seated impulse to fiercely preserve the personal self, often at the profound expense of truth itself. It is the subtle, yet powerful, drive to protect the small, finite identity by deftly manipulating life circumstances, subtly or overtly. It is the compelling urge to guarantee my preferred outcome, even if this quietly, implicitly, requires another person to experience loss or disadvantage. It is the ingrained impulse that seeks to transform all of existence into a rigid hierarchy where I must perpetually climb. I must endlessly prove my worth. I must always win. I must unequivocally be right. I must remain safe. I must be special and unique. I must be perceived as untouchable, and then, shockingly, to label this entire, intricate struggle as simply natural. Yet it is not natural, beloved ones. It is unequivocally trained. And it is so profoundly, so deeply trained into the human psyche that the vast majority of humanity mistakenly confuses it with the very essence of survival itself, when in actual fact, it is the precise mechanism that relentlessly manufactures and amplifies the pervasive sensation of threat and vulnerability. This is why, in our unique way, we speak of the Christic frequency not as a static symbol to be worshipped from afar, nor as a mere badge of honor to be proudly worn, but rather as an active, dynamic function of the infinite, gracefully moving and manifesting through the human instrument. It is a silent, yet immensely powerful intelligence that gently, meticulously dissolves the personal sins from the inside out. It does not shame you, it does not punish you, but rather it lovingly and persistently reveals what is in truth unreal until it can no longer credibly pretend to be your core identity. Hear this message with utmost clarity. The Christic frequency does not arrive to make your personal story more successful, more widely admired, more externally protected, or more outwardly impressive. If these are the goals you actively pursue, the clever, adaptive mind will, with startling ease, happily borrow spiritual language and concepts to chase these very desires. In doing so, you may feel profoundly spiritual, all the while remaining firmly ensnared within the confines of the same old, familiar personal center. The Christic frequency is, instead, here to gently but firmly realign and relocate you back into that which is fundamentally true. And that which is ultimately true, by its very nature, cannot possibly be possessed, confined, or claimed by the personal self. This is precisely why this pure frequency often appears as a profound threat to the egoic mind, which perceives its dissolution, yet, to the yearning soul, it feels like the very first truly honest and unburdened breath in an immeasurably long time. It is precisely at this juncture that temptation typically arises. Not as a dramatic theatrical spectacle, not as an overt external monster looming in the shadows, but as an insidious internal offering subtle, persuasive, and utterly compelling that whispers employ this newfound truth to achieve exactly what you desire. Harness this powerful presence to meticulously control all your outcomes. Utilize prayer as a means to bend reality into your preferred shape. Exploit the infinite itself to validate your opinions, to utterly defeat your perceived enemies, to definitively prove your self-worth, to justify your anger, to secure your personal safety. This cunning whisper, originating from the depths of the personal self, can easily sound profoundly spiritual. It may even present itself as undeniably righteous. It often dons the outward attire of selfless service, all the while silently demanding personal glory and recognition as its covert payment. True mastery, beloved ones, does not lie in fiercely battling against this whisper with brute force, for such a struggle paradoxically still grants it undue importance and energy. Instead, mastery is the quiet, discerning act of recognizing it for what it truly is, an ancient, pre-programmed pattern, and then, without any drama or internal struggle, simply refusing to engage with the contract it subtly offers. This refusal is akin to declining a transaction that you immediately discern is clearly and fundamentally misaligned with your deepest values and authentic truth. You are not required to harbor hatred for this old program. You simply, yet profoundly, cease allowing it to be the one leading your life. For many of you, a moment of profound realization will arrive when you perceive, with startling clarity, just how often the personal self attempts to subtly recruit the sacred, the divine, to serve its own limited and often ego-driven agenda. This powerful perception is not intended to induce guilt or self-reproach within you, quite the contrary. It is delivered to set you truly free. Because once you clearly behold this subtle attempt at recruitment, once you see the ego's machinations to co-opt the divine, you can then, with a profound sense of ease, relax your grip and gently step out of its influence. And within that liberating relaxation, you will uncover something utterly astonishing. You will discover that the infinite does not, in its majestic power, require your personal agenda to assert its might. Nor does the infinite, in its boundless sincerity, need your anxieties or your worries to be true. The infinite is already, inherently, whole. It is already, absolutely, complete. It already moves and expresses itself as pure, unadulterated love. And your ultimate liberation is marked by that precise moment when you cease attempting to contort this boundless love into a mere tool, something to be manipulated or utilized, and instead allow it, in its infinite majesty, to become your unshakable ground of being. This is why the most profound form of prayer is not the desperate plea, "Do something for me," nor is it the vengeful cry, "Do something against them." And it is not even the subtly egoic request, "Do something through me so that I may feel significant and important." Rather, the deepest prayer is a quiet, radical surrender that whispers live as me, think as me, move as me, love as me, not as a theatrical performance you put on for others, not as a rote vow that you simply recite from memory, but as a lived, moment-by-moment willingness to allow the personal manager, the egoic director of your life, to gently, confidently step aside and relinquish its control. When that personal manager finally steps aside, something else becomes undeniably obvious and self-evident. You discover that profound capacity is not personal, that true wisdom is not personal, that unconditional love is not personal, and even divine guidance is not personal in the limited way the human mind often imagines it to be, as if it were a prized possession belonging to a separate self that meticulously collects spiritual achievements and accolades. Instead, guidance is revealed as the natural, flowing movement of truth itself, naturally manifesting when the inner space of your being is no longer congested and cluttered with layers of self-protection and egoic defense mechanisms. This is why, as the old, false center of self gradually loosens its tenacious grip, life begins to simplify in ways that can profoundly shock and disorient the rational mind. The mind, in its fear-driven logic, has always believed that complexity was absolutely necessary for maintaining safety and control, while the soul, with its inherent wisdom, knows deeply that such perceived complexity was, more often than not, simply fear cunningly dressed up in the clever attire of intellect and intricate planning. So, what does the Christic frequency actually do in practice within the everyday context of human life? It begins its transformative work by revealing the most subtle, often imperceptible, forms of the personal sense, not for the purpose of enabling you to police yourself with rigid discipline, but rather so you can consciously cease to unconsciously operate from these ingrained patterns. You start to notice, with a newfound clarity, those moments where you subtly yearn to be more right than you genuinely want to be real. You perceive where you subtly desire to win more than you truly wish to understand. You become aware of instances where you subtly crave to be admired more intensely than you simply want to be aligned with truth. And you discern where you subtly strive to secure your personal position more fervently than you truly wish to serve the boundless expression of love. This deepening perception is not meant to crush your spirit or induce feelings of inadequacy. It is, instead, intended to break the powerful spell of unconsciousness. For the personal sense, the egoic identity thrives and gains strength in the shadows of unawareness, and it progressively weakens and dissolves in the radiant light of simple, clear seeing. Thus, as this inner vision expands and deepens, you begin to experience a profound internal cleansing, a gentle yet thorough purging, wherein certain deep-seated impulses simply lose their former sweetness and seductive allure, the impulse to retaliate with vengeance, the impulse to relentlessly prove your point, the impulse to show off and seek attention, the impulse to meticulously keep score, and the impulse to construct your identity primarily from opposition and reaction. These deeply ingrained impulses may still occasionally surface, for old habits do not vanish overnight. but they no longer register in your awareness as fundamentally me. And this, beloved ones, is the true turning point. Because the very moment an impulse is no longer deeply identified as me, it transforms from a commanding presence seated on your inner throne into a mere passing weather pattern in your consciousness, ephemeral and ultimately inconsequential. It is also precisely here that you truly begin to grasp the profound meaning of what it signifies to love your perceived enemy. And we wish to speak of this with immense care and precision, so that the clever mind cannot distort this teaching into something naive, impractical, or overly simplistic. To love an enemy does not, in any way, imply condoning harmful behavior. It does not mean remaining passively in an abusive situation. It certainly does not mean pretending that discernment and healthy boundaries are unnecessary. It signifies something far more radical, far more potent, and deeply transformative. It means, in its essence, utterly refusing to grant separation the ultimate authority to define what is truly real. For what is separation, in its deepest and most fundamental essence? It is the pervasive belief that the infinite source of all life is somehow more present in one particular body than in another, more readily available to one specific group than to another, more perfectly aligned with one particular tribe or ideology than with another. Separation, in its core, emphatically declares, I am the favored one, and they are the excluded ones. And it is from this foundational, insidious lie that every conceivable form of cruelty and injustice becomes chillingly possible. The Christic frequency, in its pure essence, gently yet powerfully dissolves this very lie, returning you to a direct, unmediated recognition, the same boundless, infinite presence that can be profoundly realized as your very own being is equally, utterly present everywhere, in all beings, in all things, patiently awaiting recognition. And no matter how profoundly distorted or egregious someone's behavior might appear on the surface, this stark reality does not, in any way, cancel or diminish the undeniable metaphysical fact that the light of the divine still resides there, beneath the layers of distortion, awaiting its rediscovery. This is why your most potent, most transformative form of prayer for those whom you fear or those whose actions disturb you is not to demand that they be crushed, exposed, removed, punished, or humiliated. Such prayers, born of reaction, only serve to keep you firmly shackled to the very same engine of separation that you wish to transcend. They keep your life inextricably tied to the external drama and suffering of the world, compel you to drink the same bitter poison of discord, and yet deceptively label it as justice. The deepest, most liberating prayer is simply this profound recognition that true, essential self is present even here, in this challenging situation. The real, underlying essence is not absent, even amidst what appears to be darkness or opposition. When you steadfastly uphold this radical recognition, you do not become passive or complacent. On the contrary, you become immensely less manipulable, less easily swayed by external forces. You are then empowered to take clear, decisive action, but with a completely different kind of guidance, one not predicated on hatred. Because hatred, in its very nature, always inevitably recreates the very world it claims to oppose and wishes to dismantle. Now, dearest friends, we wish to illuminate the far-reaching field consequence of your inner work, because many of you, perhaps unconsciously, are profoundly underestimating the expansive effect of your dedicated internal shifts. The superficial mind, ever eager for dramatic results, loves to declare that unless you manage to single-handedly transform the entire planet by tomorrow morning, nothing you do truly matters. This, beloved ones, is precisely the same pervasive spell of urgency and external validation from which we have been diligently assisting you in disengaging. The truth, in its elegant simplicity, is far more beautiful and far more impactful. Consciousness itself transmits. It transmits its qualities through your every conscious choice, through the very quality of your presence in any given moment, through the depth and nuance of the attention you bring into a room, through the considered manner in which you choose to respond rather than instinctively react, and through the quiet, consistent way you embody coherence without ever demanding applause or external recognition. As the personal sense, the egoic identity, is gently yet profoundly being cleared and eliminated within you, you naturally and effortlessly become a clearer, more open conduit for divine grace. And you do not need to loudly announce this transformation. You do not need to persuade a single soul, nor do you need to actively fix anyone else. The field, the energetic environment around you, performs its own silent, intelligent work. People within your sphere of influence begin to feel a greater sense of spaciousness within themselves, not because you explicitly instructed them to do so, but because your very presence ceases to feed the pervasive collective trance of panic, fear, and division. Your home environment subtly shifts, not through lengthy lectures or impassioned arguments, but through a palpable change in its energetic atmosphere. Your relationships with others soften and deepen, not because you overtly force them to, but because you have simply ceased bringing a subtle, underlying warfare or internal conflict into every single interaction. Your personal life becomes wonderfully less crowded and noisy with internal arguments, incessant self-talk, and endless mental negotiations. And this profound inner silence, this quiet spaciousness, generates consequences that extend far beyond what the superficial, linear mind can ever hope to measure or comprehend. And yes, this monumental shift can indeed begin with a remarkably small number of individuals. A mere handful of human beings, living authentically from a place of true, unmediated contact with their divine essence, possess the inherent capacity to profoundly transform a much larger collective field. This is achieved not through dominance, not through grand spectacle, not through aggressive persuasion campaigns, but through the irresistible force of pure resonance. For resonance is the fundamental mechanism through which realities reorganize themselves, through which new patterns emerge and solidify. And you, beloved ones, are living in a pivotal era where authentic resonance truly matters far more than persuasive rhetoric or empty slogans. The deeply entrenched architectures of control that permeate your world understand this fundamental principle all too well. This is precisely why they labor so relentlessly to harvest your precious attention, to deliberately provoke outrage, to keep you perpetually locked in reactive cycles, and to maintain your identification with division and separation. They know, with absolute certainty, that the very moment a sufficient number of you collectively cease to feed these destructive cycles, the entire edifice of their control structure will inevitably lose its vital fuel and collapse. So, if you seek to understand what your ultimate work is in this lifetime, here it is, articulated in one clear, concise sentence. Allow the Christic frequency to lovingly and thoroughly eliminate the sense of separation within you until love is no longer something you desperately chase, strive for, or seek, but rather something you simply are. When this profound transformation is actively unfolding within you, you will continue to live your human life, you will still diligently perform your work, and you will continue to move through the common, everyday world. However, you will move through it in an entirely different manner, with a fundamentally altered orientation. You will no longer be striving to extract life from life itself. You will no longer be attempting to use spirit as a mere bargaining chip or a means to an end. You will no longer make everything revolve around the intricate and often self-serving story of the personal ego. Instead, you will begin to do what you do out of the sheer joy of correct action, born of pure alignment. You will be moved by the innate beauty of contribution, by the quiet, deep satisfaction of existing in perfect harmony with the flow of the universe. And it is in this profound way that you will truly be in the world, fully engaged and present, without ever being possessed or defined by it. And we shall leave you with the simplest yet most potent test, for we understand that the human mind often gravitates towards complicated assessments. If your spirituality, your genuine connection to the divine, makes you softer, more authentically gentle, more deeply honest, more spacious in your being, and more profoundly willing to bless that which you cannot control or comprehend, then it is indeed real and true. However, if your spirituality, despite its outward appearances, makes you sharper, more subtly superior, more compulsively reactive, more addicted to being perpetually right, and more secretly anxious to see others stumble or fall, then it has unfortunately been subtly hijacked by the personal sense. In such a case, the profound invitation is simply to return. Return again and again. Not to an abstract concept, not to a fixed personality, not to a cherished story, but to the living, vibrant presence of the I am that dwells eternally beneath all the noise, all the illusion. Allow that profound, undeniable presence to be your deepest religion, your inexhaustible power, your ultimate freedom, and your eternal home. I am Valor, and I stand with you as family, as a witness, and as a constant reminder of who you already intrinsically are beyond every